Roll call, please.
Dr. Bofi?
Present.
Mr. Davis?
Present.
Miss Edmonston?
Here.
Mr. Garvey?
Here.
Miss Holloway?
Here.
Dr. Jones?
Here.
Miss Lewis?
I'm here.
Miss Orange Jones? Not in attendance. Mr. Rock?
Here.
Miss Voce?
Here.
Dr. Thomason?
Present.
And Mr. Spencer Kuiper?
Present.
You have a quorum.
Next item.
Your consent agenda is ready for your approval, adding items 4.1, 6.1, and 6.2.
So move.
Second.
Dr. Bofi, first, second by Dr. Thompson. Any opposed? Next motion.
Your first item is on page 1, item 2.1, consideration of an update report regarding the teacher preparation quality rating system. The department recommendation is to receive the report.
Motion on receiving.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Davis, second by Dr. Bofi. Any objection? Any public comments? Any discussion by the board members? That's okay. No discussion, public comment? No, not on this side. Okay. Any objection? Motion carried. Next item.
Your next item is on page 8, item 2.2, consideration of requests from teacher preparation providers to offer an innovative residency model. The department recommendation is to approve the request to offer the innovative residency model submitted by McNeese, Northwestern, and ULM as outlined.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Voce, first, second by Mr. Davis. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me just outline. There are going to be a number of items that are related to educator preparation about to come up. I will, for those that where I think there's going to be discussion, I'll make comments to preface each one of them. This is a proposal for 3 institutions that have brought forth proposals under the innovative model provision of the regulations that were passed 2 years ago. This allows some modifications to some of the requirements within those regulations, and in these cases we are recommending that these be approved. These are from McNeese, Northwestern, and ULM as well. There will be later discussion of other institutions and other proposals and under different agenda items. This is particularly pursuant to these 3 institutions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any discussion, members? Yes, Dr. Jones.
I'm not quite sure how to do this. It's one motion, but I'm an adjunct professor for ULM, and I'm not sure whether I need to recuse myself just on item C of that. Is that possible, or? Yes. Or yes. Okay.
Any other discussion? Any board members? Any objection? Abstaining? Motion passes. Next item.
Your next item is on page 19, item 2.3, consideration of a proposal for the Early Elementary Ancillary Certificate Program submitted by the University of Florida Lastinger Center. The department recommendation is to approve the proposal.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Rock and Mr. Davis, second.
Members, I'll note on this one that this is an ongoing and rolling process to approve entities to provide the preparation for the Childhood Development Associate credential, which is now required for teachers in the early childhood setting as a minimum standard. There are a number of groups that have been approved over the years to do this. They come back to you for reauthorization as well, and this is a proposal for one such group to provide a blended coursework experience to train certain individuals on these courses, for this credential.
Member discussion? Ms. Voce?
I think Superintendent White just answered my question. This is just one provider. There are multiple providers.
I believe upwards of a dozen at this point, providers in this. Yes,
That's
ma'am.
fine.
Yeah.
Anyone else? We do have a public comment card. Ms. Laura Glaser, please come forward. Identify yourself and the agency you represent.
Good morning. I'm Laura Glaser. I brought my colleague Karen Molinario here with me. Although I currently reside in Florida, I just wanted to bring Karen up with me as she resides here.
Is your mic on? I'm sorry.
It is on. Do I need to get closer, perhaps? Karen resides here in Louisiana, so we're so happy to have her as part of our team. Just grateful to be here with you all this morning, and grateful to have been in Louisiana in 2 of your parishes for about a year and a half now. We've been in Calcasieu and Lafayette, working with those agencies there, and they are just amazing people. So I just wanted to say that we've had a terrific partnership with them. And so far with them, we've already worked with 163 teachers in those 2 parishes, with 49 so far completing the coursework and getting their ancillary certificate. So we're super proud of them and happy to be here. And, you know, we've been proud to be a part of their work, but I wanted to say to you all, too, they've informed our work. So we love that, and being able to collaborate in such a way. Also of note for them, and to give them a little shout out too, is they have one of the highest mastery rates of our courses that we've seen nationally so far. So they're at 88% mastery rate. And other places we are around 80, 82, 83%. So super proud of them. As you all probably know, and I'm probably, you know, preaching to the choir, but we created this program to meet the needs of teachers, and both of us being teachers formerly ourselves, but especially early childhood, right? They barely make minimum wage, maybe a little bit more, and finding good professional development is just super hard. Not only do they have to pay for that most times, they have to leave work to do that, and most don't have benefits at their job, so leaving work is out of the question. Or who wants to go to training at night or on a Saturday? I mean, that's just an awful way to get training. But, you know, one of the most important things we heard from teachers was they're ready for more high-quality, meaningful curriculum to learn. In our field, it's often called make it, take it, and we're happy that our teachers want to move past that and kind of dive deep into their learning. So we're happy to do that. One thing of note, as you look at our application, we want to invite the directors in to the courses as well. So we're offering that free to them as their teachers go through the coursework. If the directors also want to participate, we found that to be very successful for their center. I lastly want to thank, I have 18 seconds, thank Erin and her team. They have been just a joy to work with, so helpful, working with us week by week. So just thanks to them. And thank you all for considering us.
Thank you. Any comments, objections to this consideration? If not, motion carries. I'd like to take a moment of personal privilege to recognize someone here. I see him in the audience. Dr. Louis Byron, please stand. We are so excited in Lafourche. We have a new superintendent, and he was selected last week. And we thank him for being here, and we're quite excited that he's going to move our district forward. Welcome. Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that in the same tone. I've heard a lot of great things about the new superintendent, and I'm looking forward to seeing great things happen in your
Absolutely.
area.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Ms. Holman?
Yes.
If we're adding to that, I too want to let my congratulations, but and to point out that Dr. Veron has been the lead in the personnel supervisors organization and has made a tremendous impact statewide within that group. And to also give a shout out to Superintendent Matthews, Joanne Matthews, who had done an excellent job in Lafourche, and wish her well on her
Absolutely. She's done well, and so you have big shoes to fill. Thanks, Luz, for being here. Appreciate it. Well, let's move on. Next item.
Your next item is on page 115, item 2.4, consideration of the certification program approval request submitted by Teachers College Columbia University. The department recommendation is to approve Teachers College Columbia University's Educational Leader Master's Program.
Motion for consideration.
So moved.
Ms. Voce? Mr. Davis? And?
Thank you.
Yes,
And members, this is
Superintendent.
another approval request. This is for approving a master's credential for the administrative licenses.
Any discussion, comments? Public comments? No? Any objection? Motion carries. Next item.
Your next item is on page 117, item 2.5, consideration of the request submitted by University of Louisiana at Lafayette to offer an innovative residency model. The department recommendation is to approve the innovative model for elementary and secondary math and science, and to receive the report regarding the updated innovative model for the remaining certification areas.
Motion, Dr. Bofi. Dr. Jones, second. Yes.
Thank you.
Superintendent.
Thank you. Members, just to update on this item, and I know there will be some discussion, this is part of the process of the regulations that were put in place 2 years ago related to the residency model, and some of our larger institutions have submitted proposals for a number of different programs, meaning they have within their colleges programs that stretch across different majors and that work within their College of Education as well. In the case of the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, we have proposed to approve their application for an innovative model that we believe meets the required terms in terms of the amount of exposure that the candidate gets to the real classroom, meaning the amount of time that they're spending in that residency model. And there's some other pathways, in particular the humanities within elementary and secondary subjects, that we think need more time for development and further dialogue with the leadership at ULL. I want to first thank the leadership at ULL for working with us on this. I know that's a very large institution. They provide a very large number of teachers, in particular in South Louisiana, and have a lot to commend their programs. We ask your approval of the ones that we're ready to move forward, and we ask that we be permitted to continue the dialogue on those that we don't feel are yet ready. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We have any other discussion?
Well, I'd like to, I do, but I think I'd like to hear from the speakers first.
Okay, thank you. We have 2 green cards, Nathan Roberts and Peter Shepard. Please identify yourselves and your agency. Bye.
Thank you very much. Nathan Roberts, I'm the Dean of the College of Education at UL Lafayette.
Peter Shepard, the Professor and Department Head of Curriculum Instruction at UL Lafayette.
Thank you. So 3 minutes is not near enough to cover everything about this program and what we're seeking. Primarily, we're asking for permission to have the innovative program that's been successful piloted continue for all of our programs. We meet the workforce needs of our entire area, including our rural parishes. And if we have to go up to a higher percentage on ours, our rural parishes are going to be significantly hurt when we extend that out. So we'd like to be able to address that workforce need. We think we all have the same end and goal, which is to have strong certified teachers with an impact for a lifetime. Not just a short time, but our lifetime, which means we need more content and we need more pedagogy for these teachers so that they're prepared to last a long time. We constantly hear that they're not fully prepared with content and pedagogy, so we don't want to cut that out to be able to put them in the schools. We want them to get all of that. This program we have matches up so that they get both into those. We've lost content in the past when we had to drop to 120 hours, so we want to keep that up. It's very hard to find the certified teachers, especially for high schools and middle schools, but our elementary is our biggest program, and we need to spread those out over a huge area, and to be able to run our new program is going to assist us. What's different here is that we embraced the residency concept from the very beginning, and we created the biggest pilot in the state. and we ran it for every single program within our certification, which is every one you offer, and it was successful in every one of those programs. So we've shown that it can work. We've already piloted with less hours and less time that we're suggesting in this one here, is to allow that to go forward and continue, because what we want to do is find the ability for our students to work. I've had students almost come in crying because they're afraid that they won't have enough time to work and they have to take out bigger loans, or they're going to have to extend their time at the university to be able to meet if we can't go with our plan that we have suggested. One of the things we set with this was the research consortium was going to come in and study all the programs that are out there. There are different models. You just heard that there's some innovation coming from some other universities there. We don't know which one is going to be the best, and we don't know if they'll all work or if none of them are going to work. So the consortium was designed to study that so that we could come back in the future and say, here's some guidelines, here's where it seemed to work, here's where it didn't work, and then make modifications. What we would like to have the board consider is to allow us to try all of our programs with our pilot, again, that was successful out there, from all the indicators that we can find, from students, from principals, from teachers, and from the faculty. They could make this work. And so we want to continue that. That was the whole purpose of the pilot, was to show that we have something in place that could actually work. So now that we have the evidence that it works, we want to continue to go forward, which is why we submitted a program that addresses all of ours. When they start, the crucial part that everybody seemed to be missing was that beginning of the school year, because we don't start school until 3 or 4 weeks after the public schools start. Well, the Innovative program has them start on day one, and they will continue to start on day one to understand what does it take to get a school started. And they will spend 100% of their time at these schools working with the teachers until UL begins. So they're going to have 3 or 4 weeks of working 100% of the time with that principal in that school to understand, how do I get my class started? How is it organized? How do I get control of it? So they'll see all those pieces. Once they get into UL and start their classes where they get reflection and continue with their pedagogy and some of their content, they will continue to go back to the schools spread out over the week, anywhere from 2 to 3 days a week, depending upon their schedules, to continue to see the progression. They will understand how the students go through that entire first semester of their internship and their residency to see how the teacher manages each step of the way. And they'll begin some of their co-teaching during that first semester. Anytime UL is not meeting, they're in the schools 100%. So when we finish for graduation, which is right around, we quit having classes basically around last week of November. They have their finals. Schools are still in place, so they'll be back in those schools going 100% of the time to see how they wrap it up and close for the semester. The next semester they start again, day one when the school teachers come back, so they'll see how they kick it back up all the way to the end of the year. So the purpose of the year-long residency was to give them full exposure to know what is it like to run an entire year at a school. Our pilot program showed that it worked, and that's what our Innovative program does, is give them that full exposure so they can see what's happening and they'll be prepared the first day that they walk in. By allowing us to continue giving the courses in there, they'll have the pedagogy and the content to have a deeper impact long after that first year. So it's filling them up to be successful all the way through. And Dr. Shepard's going to tell you some of the more. Our test scores that have come back with these teachers who went through that pilot are some of the best in the state. So that we showed in that pilot it worked. And in addition to the pilot, we've increased the number of time and the hours that we put into the pilot. So it should be even better than our pilot was, which was extremely successful. So when we add all those things up together into our program, we feel like we want to get started with this. We want to be able to get it off on the books and to be able to move forward with something that's been successful that all of our districts are ready to jump on board with. There's not a one out there that doesn't agree with us and say what we started was great and to ask us to continue with it. So that's our proposal and what we'd like to go forward with. The one piece we did add to this, when this resident came up, we didn't just look at percentages of time. We redesigned. Our practice has been working over a year on this. They completely put in new items and new structure, and we have a strong social justice theme that runs throughout ours to make sure that the teachers understand what's going on in schools and can keep that going forward. That was a component that built into it. So we're not just asking for the percentage of time. We redesigned our entire program. And we think it is very successful. We think it meets all the conditions of a residency that was situated in there. And we think it's going to produce very good teachers for Louisiana. We need to get the numbers up because the workforce that we address is our rural parishes and our local area. And every one of our teachers ends up getting hired. So we need to get them out there, and we need to get them into the schools and continue to let those rural parishes get these residents. So that's our basic proposals to continue to go forward. We gave you a one-page profile that highlights what's going on at the university in a lot of this, because we realize you don't always get a chance to see that. And what we just want there is this was the largest pilot that went out. We addressing the need of our rural parishes. It's spread out over the entire semester and for full week exposure, and it incorporates the social justice content to it. We've worked with the Department of Ed on many of their grants, on all of their proposals. We've had a very strong co-teaching component to it that everybody's been trained in. So we seem to have everything going forward, and we would like your permission to go ahead and get this started, get it into the books, because we need to get it into our catalog to make it effective for the fall 2019 year so that those new students coming in will see exactly what's expected of them. So our request to the board here is to approve all of our programs and let us go through and then have the research consortium study this to see which programs will work and if there is any significant difference between those who have a lot of hours and those who have a little bit less hours in the results that come in. Thank you.
Ms. Holloway?
Go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Jones.
Just to make sure I'm understanding, Superintendent White's recommendation was to approve part of it and to receive the other part of it. Is that accurate?
Yes, or just not to advance it and continue the dialogue. Or take no action.
And your request is for us to approve your whole proposal as it currently is?
Yes, and we do plan to continue the dialogue. No one has a final answer as to what's going to work, and we're going to continue to talk about what we can do to add time, what we can do to increase things, but we want to go ahead and move forward now with our proposal.
Okay. So, Superintendent White, if we were to do as Dr. Roberts has requested, would there be any reason that you couldn't later on come back to us and say it didn't work and I want you to withdraw that? Is there some reason why we have to do it the way that your recommendation rather than his way?
It's all up to the opinion of the board. You established guidelines, you established rules 2 years ago. You said that the rule is that there's a certain percentage of time that should be spent in the senior year in the classroom rather than in the more of the student environment, in the co-teaching setting, meaning more than in the on-campus. You allowed for an innovative model that says if there is reason for and evidence of the need to create an alternative to that, we're going to create that path too. So you gave yourself the flexibility to say we're going to do something different. I think the question that I would be asking if I were you is, one, why is it that other institutions have been able to meet the bar that Dr. Roberts says UL is not either able to or willing to meet? And second, what is the right threshold where you should approve deviating from the original path? Those are questions of judgment that the board needs to make. I'm not yet comfortable that we've reached a point with UL and then later with LSU where that dialogue has fully been had. I'm actually not saying that there shouldn't be, that Dr. Roberts is wrong and that there shouldn't be some compromise. I am concerned that you approving a program with the percentage of time in the first semester that UL is preparing to go forward with does not comport with the intent of the regulations that you passed 2 years ago.
So, and I struggle with this, and I'm going to tell you why I struggle with it, and I'll struggle with it again later when the LSU proposal comes up. In my experience, which is almost a half a century in education, this is a lot easier to solve at the elementary level than it is at the secondary level when we start dealing with subjects and courses and so forth that you know, I worry that we have all kinds of alternative programs and alternative ways of certification, but I don't want us to be in a position where we totally hamper someone like ULL's proposal that may in fact be all right. I just don't know whether. So I guess my concern is, okay, if we did what Dr. Roberts is suggesting here, is there any reason that if it doesn't bear out, because I think he's pointed out that their pilot study has shown it to be pretty effective, if I'm understanding what he's saying. If it turns out that it's not effective, we have the ability to go back and change it? or
You
not?
do, although, let me add just a couple of points in response to what you've said. And I think we always knew we were going to get to this point where not everything exactly met with every rule, which is fine. First, for whatever it's worth, some of the secondary programs that UL is advancing we are recommending for approval, and some of the elementary programs that are being here in front of us today we are not recommending for approval. So this situation actually does not kind of break out with what I would have expected as you're articulating, Dr. Jones, which is that the secondary programs are harder to meet the time requirements than the elementary programs here. In fact, here we're talking about some elementary programs while we're recommending for approval some of the secondary programs. Second, some of the secondary programs we're recommending for approval with UL, LSU is saying they cannot meet. So for some reason, across different institutions, they're having a hard time meeting the same bar, even though it is exactly the same subjects and grade levels. And I say that not as an indictment of either UL or LSU, but that it raises questions for me as to why, when two large institutions are bringing proposals forward in the same grade levels and subject areas, one of them can satisfy the requirements in a grade level and subject area that the other cannot, and the other can satisfy the requirements in a grade level and subject area that the other cannot. That to me calls out opportunities for further dialogue, because you're right, these things are very complicated, and I would just suggest to the board that rather than creating approvals that I think are going to be very difficult to unwind, which would be my answer to your question, I think it's very difficult to unwind something that's already being implemented. Why not give us more time to have the dialogue to try to develop something that is closer to the standard?
Okay, well, here, my final comment on this. Having some experience with colleges and universities, they publish a catalog at the beginning of the year, and that's a contract with that student for the next 4 years. I'm concerned that if I tie, if we tie the hands of those folks with that, trying to put that contract in place for the beginning of an academic year, what we in fact do is tie it up for probably 2 years after that. Am I wrong on that, Dr. Roberts?
No, it's at least 2 years. It's very hard to unwind once something is approved to then go back and change it.
All the more reason from my perspective to not approve something today where there's not an agreement, and instead to allow further dialogue.
Ms. Holloway.
Yes, one second. Can maybe, Ms. Lewis, can you hold your thought? And is it possible to hear Dr. Shepard?
Thank you. Man, I was sitting in all that traffic and I can't say a word.
Jones. Thank you.
So the things I want you to really consider is that these are the hallmarks of our program. Our program is a quality program, and I can tell you it is quality based on the value-added measure which you all value. If you look at our value-added measures, look at how we perform in mathematics. There's no other program that has a positive effect with their new teacher candidates in the sample than our program. Within that sample, it doesn't only include secondary math people, it includes elementary math as well. So the math is inclusive of both of our programs. ELA, we're highly successful. We're the second best. And in science, we're third best in terms of that. So we're a quality program. We put out enough to meet the workforce needs of our area, and we also put out enough to meet the workforce needs of the state. So we're a quantity program as well. We're quality and quantity. The 40% that we're proposing across all of our programs is that we don't want to distinguish one program for another. We don't want to say that if it's good enough for math and science, it's not good enough for elementary. We don't want to say if it's good enough for math and science, well, hey, social studies, you have to do a little bit more. These people will be sitting in the same courses, some of the same courses. We don't think that that's an equitable approach for a program that is seeking equity. So we want to be an accessible program, not just quality, not just quantity. We also want to be an accessible program. And finally, the thing that makes it most distinguishable, the thing that was attracted to us, and I think I'd like to thank the board and the Department of Education and all those who have been working with the Department of Education to give us this opportunity to be innovative. What this innovative program allowed us to do is to think differently about teacher preparation. Teacher preparation for us is not about hours. Absolutely not about hours. What it is about making a difference in the lives of kids and equipping our teachers to be able to undo the instructional injustices so that our kids will have a better life trajectory. That's what it's all about. And what we know so far, we don't know what would happen if we changed our program. But the results show right now that we're a high-quality program. The results show right now that we're producing very, very well in terms of quantity. The results show right now that we're accessible. When we have people who are working, they know that they can actually still work and complete this program and still end up being a high-quality teacher. This is what we want you to consider. What we want you to consider is our programs across. We can't do anything about any other program, about any other campus. Our programs are under one roof. Art majors, if they have to go and have to spend more studio time, music majors, if they have to do more performance time, all those things are in consideration when we created this program to make sure all of our candidates, every single candidate that graduates from the University of Louisiana Lafayette is prepared to make a difference in the lives of kids. That's what our program is about.
What he said.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. You want to go ahead and we'll make a motion?
We have two motions on the floor right now. The first is to approve. The second is to receive. And we would like to just clear out the approve items and continue to discuss the receive item, if that's okay with the board.
You notice page 117.
Yes.
Yeah, approved. Okay, I need a motion for the...
have the motion?
We have the motion.
I made the motion.
Any
Approved.
objection?
Any objection?
On the approve item.
On the print.
Okay, no objection. Motion here carries with approved for number 1. Then we move forward with the number 2 to receive the report regarding the updated innovative model for the remaining certification area, and that we can further our discussion.
I have a question.
I'll come back to,
Yeah,
if you
okay.
don't mind, I think Ms. Voce was first, and we'll go to Ms. Lewis. Okay. Ms. Voce.
Like Dr. Jones, I struggle with this. And when we approved this thing 2 years ago, some of the real attractive parts to this model was the year-long residency. But I think that the real crux of the year-long residency, we were very concerned that the candidates started first day of school, involved in planning, continued through the entire school year, and worked closely with that teacher to get the viewpoint of what happens all year long. Being involved in the planning, going to the activities, report card conference nights, parent conference, those kinds of things. And there was a lot of hesitancy. I know the Board of Regents came and they were supportive of the model, but to me, I thought one of the biggest elements in there that offered, I guess, comfort to a lot of people looking at it was there was a provision for innovative models.
Right.
Now, just by, to me, definition of an innovative model, that implies that all the parts of the bulletin or all the parts of the program may not be met exactly as it's written.
Exactly.
You could propose something that deviated from certain parts of the model if you could show that it's been successful or enough data to support your position. So whether this time element of 40%, 60%, 80%, or whatever these percentages were that we put out there, I think by virtue of the fact that we're putting that section in lends us to believe that we need to consider proposals that deviate somewhat from each or any of those types of, requirements. I think also, and I realize we just approved the math and science pieces, but we've talked a lot about knowledge of content and pedagogy, and feeling that many of our teachers may or may not be coming out with that real content knowledge that they need And look, don't sell short elementary. I mean, we've got our elementary, for example, elementary math scores. I feel our people do need more content knowledge even at the elementary level, because we're getting teachers who are struggling with Eureka math concepts in K-5 or in our curriculums that address our standards. So content and pedagogy are very important that people get prior to. Now, how they get it, is 120 hours enough? If their models is sufficient, if another university does it another way. I don't have that broad knowledge of what each and every university does that might be somewhat different. But these gentlemen are telling me that they need it to shore up content and pedagogy across all curriculum areas. I know the music and the vocal music and instrumental music programs require performance activities for certain students that may be over and above, but in their genre, that's extremely important as well. I don't mind having further discussion, but I'm a little concerned about timelines for implementation. If this is going to be implemented in this coming school year, my concern is, and I guess I would ask these gentlemen, what is the latest time you could have an answer on this so that you could still implement with the coming school year? Is today the hard and fast deadline? Or if further dialogue can take place, is December sufficient at our December meeting? So I guess I would ask you for that response first.
Our catalog revisions are typically due in November. If we went to our university and we asked them and we told them the situation that we were in, then they would work with us. They're willing to work with us.
May I just, this was, you may recall, this was a discussion that was had 2 years ago, and you decided to place in bulletin a January 1, 2019 date for by when this decision. So you had this discussion earlier, and you said we don't want these decisions being made later than January 1. All of which is to say there's a BESE meeting between now and January 1. And by the way, I want to give both Dr. Roberts and Dr. Shepard credit where credit is due. Many of the programs that Ms. Voce just mentioned, actually you just approved. So for example, proposals that would cover mathematics, you just approved.
Middle and high.
Correct. So some of those struggles that you're describing, where content knowledge is so essential in particular, have been addressed. And we are relatively close to some of the standards here. In some of the programs, they're proposing 40% of the spring semester be spent, the fall semester be spent in the classroom. That's about half of the time that you had put in. But in some, they're at 60%. So we're quite close. And what I'm suggesting to you, board members, is that I think an approach that gives us, recognizing you just approved a huge slew of programs in a very large institution, that just gives us a little bit more time to work through some of these complexities. It's not a confrontational issue, it's just time for more discussion. To meet your January 1 deadline will help everybody get there, knowing that there's great urgency and all of that urgency understood.
I just want to make sure that we can meet the university's deadlines as well for implementation beginning in August. And gentlemen, if you could send over any of your people my way, I would be most appreciative, even though we're on the other side of the state, because the people that we have had from your institution have been extremely good. Thank you. But I'm still struggling with this, and I'd like to hear what other people have to say. But they've got a tremendous program. I think it meets the concept of residency from day one through the end of the school year. I struggle a little bit with the content and pedagogy. I hope we don't lose that within this model because it's so extremely important. And I recognize on-the-job experience is just as vital. So I am struggling with this a little, but very open to it, and I'd love, I just want to make sure we can meet everyone's timelines.
Thank you, Ms. Voce. I have a question. I've read and kept up with your innovative plan, and a lot of work has been placed into this. Good job. And Dean Roberts, can you clarify the number of days that these students are in the classroom for the fall semester versus the spring semester? I read somewhere it's like they're in the classroom in the spring semester every day. So is that 100%? Can you, one of you clarify this, please?
And Dr. Shepard has more details than me. The first semester, whether they start in fall or spring, it's that 100% in the initial part to make sure they learn everything that the teacher's doing to get set up for it, because they don't have any classes with us and they can put that time in. Once our classes start, they're there basically 3 days a week, depending upon their schedules, how they can make that fit, so that they can see the entire extent of what the teacher's doing during that week, the progression of the students, the lesson plans, all the pieces to it. Then at the end of the semester, they go back 100% again as they learn how to wrap up a semester. All the steps that go into getting it ready to shut down before the next semester starts. So it's a lot in the beginning, then it's less in the middle because they're going through their courses on campus and there's a lot of travel time and other issues that they have to deal with. Then when they finish with us, they go back again for another 100%.
Yeah.
So in the middle, it's roughly 3 days a week because it's spread out for them to see what's going on in the class while they're not there.
But to your point, yes, we do exceed the actual residency requirements in the second semester, although we're a little bit lower in terms of the first semester. And I will like to say that we emphasize that it's a minimum because we want to give students that flexibility. If they can go, we actually encourage them to go. But we didn't want to put certain students, because we have a high working population, and we also want to be we want to be responsive to those who may have some financial needs and still need to work. And so there is that 40%. But I do want to mention and reiterate that we do think that this is an interdependent program. We depend upon the teachers, we depend upon our faculty, we depend upon content faculty, and we actually depend upon your guidance in terms of what you want to see in the classroom. And so we like that whole mission of Believe and Prepare, and we think that this is one of those programs that I think that the board and the Department of Education will be very proud to say that one of our institutions is actually producing the kind of candidates that we're producing.
So to end with, you have approximately 40%, 100 versus 60-80 or 80-80.
Right. It's essentially a 40-100 versus a 60-80 or a 80-80.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lewis.
Ms. Deach, can you come down to answer a question? It kind of piggies back on what Dr. Roberts talked about. Just this whole research consortium, if you can just kind of talk about what's the status of that consortium, the research project. I know it was supposed to include the teacher quality ratings, and is that an area that can really evaluate what the appropriate percentages should be? Because I know it's not exactly germane to this issue, but it's tangential, right? Since he did refer to this consortium, so if you could kind of talk about the status, what's going on, and how this kind of ties in.
Yeah,
well.
Of course, I'm happy to. Dr. Lewis and UL and LSU are the leaders of the research consortium, so they may have thoughts to add. We established an Educator Preparation Research Consortium about a year ago to look into issues regarding teacher preparation, including the teacher preparation accountability system, and also to give grant funds to institutions to shape research proposals on teacher preparation writ large. So we gave a grant of $50,000 to UL and LSU to shape a research agenda and also to advise the department on teacher preparation accountability implementation. Since the grant was given, we've met with UL and LSU several times to solicit their feedback on various issues related to teacher preparation accountability. UL and LSU have called a group of researchers together to begin to shape a research agenda. And my understanding is that they're in the process of shaping that agenda and seeking additional grant funds to supplement those that we've given them. I do think that the question of the success of residency programs, particular aspects of residency programs that are more likely to lead to teacher and student success, are absolutely topics that would be valuable for the consortium to research, and within the scope of what was provided for in the contract we created with them.
I guess because this is such a robust discussion, I mean, do we need to extend this consortium consortium and the research project for another year. I know when we initially talked about this, it was supposed to be a 1-year time frame, but I know I kind of missed that. I guess that came under 2.1. I'm not sure, but it's all connected. So do we need to extend this another year and maybe have this as one of the projects that we work on, since looks like the work is still ongoing? And to me, this is a critical piece of the directive.
The consortium is still funded, so there are still funds available for the consortium to spend in service of their mission. And the Board of Regents and our agency have committed additional funds for the following year. The consortium will continue.
So to be clear, the consortium is ongoing and funded now?
Correct, yes.
So, Ms. Davis, so are you interested? I'm sorry.
Are we, if we approve this quote innovative model, is there a time frame? Like we approve it for 2 years, or we approve it forever? Or could we approve it for a 2-year period, which takes that cycle in while it's being researched within this consortium? What is the time frame we're looking at? Is this a forever approval or a time-sensitive approval?
The motion for the secondary math and science programs was to approve them, and then ongoing approval is based on the accountability system. My guess is that you would be able to create a conditional or provisional approval if that was your wish.
For a certain time frame?
For a certain time frame.
Okay.
I think that the challenge is that I think an approval you have to consider a long-standing thing, because the policies that we've been working on with the UL leadership are about cohorts, and as Dr. Jones said, you need to broadcast something to cohorts that are coming into the program, and therefore changing the program midstream. You know, when you're marketing to upcoming freshmen, you really can't do that, I don't think, fairly, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, you know, but until, you know, say a 5-year horizon, really.
Well, I just thought
And,
Dr. Roberts said a 2-year turnover. So that's
yeah, look, I think we're not wanting to be inflexible. I think the question is, what's the right line of flexibility? And what they have proposed is a 40-100 or 40-80. Is that right? 40.
These little numbers where we're counting days.
Thank
It's
you.
a whole concept.
I
Ms.
think I
Fauché.
still have the floor. I have a couple more questions. Superintendent, what other universities have been able to go with the proposals, have been able to accept the proposals that you have made so far? Is UL part of, I mean, is it a lot of universities that are in UL's position, or have other universities been able to live with the proposals that you've made?
Every proposal that you've seen, and many of them from UL, have gotten to the thresholds. I think LSU would be the other institution that we'll hear from later. There's an agenda item later that is in a similar position, although I don't want to draw exact comparisons between the two, because there are differences between the UL circumstance and the LSU circumstance.
So what other universities have accepted the...
Well, you approved some of them today, McNeese, Northwestern, and on down the line. Most of the statewide institutions have reached the threshold, which isn't to say a bad word about the UL programs, but it is to say that the argument that they cannot be reasonably met seems not to be true.
And McNeese doesn't have the rural teacher population, or the rural school population that Lafayette has?
I think that they do.
They do?
Yes, sir.
McNeese doesn't have students that need to work?
I have to assume they do.
You would, I would too. Okay, thank you.
I have some questions.
Dr. Bofi?
Thank you. Okay. I have to start by thanking you two. I appreciate all the time and effort that you've put into this, and you know, this is a continuation of a dialogue that we've been having. So thank you so much for all that time and effort, and the passion you have for preparing people so that they're ready to help students reach their potential. We can't have enough of that. We need it.
Thank you.
so important to the work that we're doing. So I think the more time I spend on it, you know, I'm trying to figure out how we get this across the finish line for you, so you can, you know, focus on the business of preparing teachers. And I have a few questions. The first one is, I want your pitch on what's innovative about this, because I don't feel like I can go and give that pitch to other people. So if you just spend a little bit of time on that, it may help me.
Yeah. So the one thing that really made it innovative is that we're looking at it from a 4-year perspective, and we're trying to progressively get our students to better understand themselves so that they can better prepare themselves for helping the students in year 1. So year 1 is really about broadening your view and understanding that this particular field is one that is very selfless. So year 1 is really about a service learning component in which they're going to get into these rural communities, get into some of these urban communities that need more assistance, and better understand and study what's going on within the community. Year 2 of our program is a focus on really looking at resources through an audit sort of approach. It's an instructional audit, equity audit sort of approach, so that we can, now that we understand the big picture of what the resources that exist within the community, now let's look at how we can use those resources to better inform instruction. And if there are lack of resources, look at ways in which we can utilize best promote and to some degree figure out ways to not look at it from a deficit perspective, but look at it from an asset perspective. In other words, there's opportunity now to get more resources to these particular students. In the 3rd year, we really want them to be immersed in an ideal instructional setting, whether that is in a high-need school or whether that is in a high-performing school. It doesn't matter. We need them to see good teaching in practice. And so that 3rd year is going to spend a lot of time with them involved in instruction, but under the mentorship of a highly effective teacher in a highly effective classroom in a highly effective environment. So that 3rd year is, okay, there are best practices that exist. We understand the community very well. We understand how to utilize these resources. And now we understand how to see it in practice. Year 4 is now we're going to send our students, 100% of our students, to high-need schools. And in these high-need schools, we want to ensure that they study the issues that might be present, particularly those that are instructional, such that in that first semester they have a systemic. They approach the problem from a systemic standpoint and not try to do it in such a way where they're not studying. So in that last year, we really want to empower them because of what happened in the first 3 years, so that they can take those best practices from those immersive experiences, understand the community better, and use those assets to better inform what happens in that classroom. And the final semester includes an action research project. Every year there are research checks. In other words, study what you do. We want them to be students of the profession of teaching, such that when we make change, we know that that change could be replicable and that change was systemic.
Thank you. So I think that we are in different places on a particular issue, and that is an issue on your program being the same for every student in the College of Education. And so it seems like for you that's important, that if you're an elementary major or a high school science major, the program is the same. I don't know why that, I'm trying to figure out why that's so important to you, because I feel like that's an opportunity for us to differentiate, and it's the way that we've differentiated with other institutions to give some flexibility with this policy. Right. And I think that's the rub. I think the rub is you feel like the program has to be the same for every student in the College of Education, and we're trying to get as close as we can to a policy. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
My answer to that is that the structure is the same. The structure should be the same across programs, because we know that our structure has results. If we take all the subjectivity out of that and we look at those results, the value-added results are tremendous results, and we look at those results are inclusive of programs that did the same thing. When we started our residency policy, we didn't say secondary, you're going to do this, elementary, you're going to do this. Everybody's going to do this. From a structural standpoint. Of course, what happens in the courses are going to be different because they take different content courses. They may have different other experiences. But in terms of the structure, and if you think about it from this perspective, we're asking everyone in the state to essentially have the same structure. We're still having a residency structure. there is going to be some differences within that structure. We know that some differences may exist, but the core structure, beginning and ending, the core structure of examining what you do, examining yourself, examining resources, utilizing those resources effectively, that structure, we think, is the core of what we do well, and the results tend to show that.
So I'm not there. I'm not there in a place to where it has to be the same for everybody. So if you want to expand on it, I mean,
I'll give you. I'll challenge you. I'll throw this out there. I'll say this. Why don't you, if you want to see if the residency pilot works on every other program, use our program as the experimental group. And the American Institutes of Research is collaborating with the Louisiana Department of Education to examine the results. Take every other program and look at an elementary program, because right now our results show that other programs that have used the residency model since 2015, 2016 don't outperform our programs. That's what the results say now. If you want to look in 3 years down the line or 4 years down the line, like in our graduates, compare our graduates in our program in elementary versus the other program. Right now, if we have to do the same thing that everyone else does, what will happen is you'll get a skewed view. You won't have a comparison group. Use us as the comparison group. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, we'll come back and we'll do what works.
well, I don't know that we can do that based on your argument of the innovative model earlier, because I think you would be different as a result of the innovative model that you're arguing. So I respect and understand the research component in terms of what you're talking about. I'm trying to figure out how we can get to the green light on the policy piece, and I see an opportunity with the rural education, right? Like that is something that I've heard from both of you is really important, something I understand is important in our community. And so I think that there are some opportunities around the rural aspect that if you had a willingness for some difference among your students, then I think we could get to a greater spot, get closer. So that's where I see as the rub. That's where I see as the rub.
Any of our students can go to rural. We want to have, again, the high needs is defined in 3 areas by the Department of Education. Sorry, high poverty, high minority, rural within 25 miles. We have so many candidates, we're going to have students in each of those high needs areas. We know that. An elementary candidate who's in a rural place in Evangeline Parish will have very, very much difficulty coming from campus to getting to that particular spot and coming back to the campus within a time period.
So you can bring us a proposal to say, for my candidates that are in this rural area, I have to adjust the fact of travel time because they are traveling out to a rural area. So you could bring us a proposal around that piece. I think that's part of our innovation and part of our flexibility in trying to figure out how we meet the needs of everyone, while at the same time providing quality experiences, because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know how else to sell our program. I can tell you that we'll have 60 or so candidates, and each and every one of those candidates will be in high needs schools based on the definition that the Department of Education has with the new high needs level. To say that all of our elementary students would be in a rural area is probably something that our local school district might not necessarily feel is going to work for them. In our post-bac programs, we might be able to do something like that, which is another issue that is coming up pretty soon. We really want to look at that. So I think in terms of the flexibility, we want flexibility within the high needs, just like exists within all of our programs. But I really think that we don't want to lose sight of the fact that we have high quality results at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, we don't want to turn a candidate down, regardless of who that candidate is, regardless of where that candidate came from, and to say that we have a program that's structured to where you couldn't actually raise a kid, you couldn't actually work and make a living because of the program structure. That is very, very close to my heart when it comes to that. But from an objective standpoint, it's hard to argue the results in terms of where our students have been, both elementary, secondary, science, English, mathematics.
Any other?
One last comment, just is that obviously we've had a very strong conversation on this. And while I think all of us are, and as Superintendent Voce said earlier, I'm torn on this thing. I certainly recognize that we have policy in place and that it's not a one-size-fits-all. I understand this is an innovative model, but we do have to be wary of what we're saying. Okay, we're good with this part. As I just sermonized on not setting precedents, and then my fellow member here used the term, we set a precedent right after that. That is so easy for us to do and for us to fall into. But I think it's evident from the conversation here that we probably do need to continue having a robust conversation on this that we haven't quite as a board. So we haven't voted. I can't speak for everyone, but it seems we have not quite gotten comfortable with the model as it's outlined in front of us right now. So I just encourage us to keep in mind the timeline, as the superintendent alluded to earlier, to make sure we're being fair to all parties involved, but to continue this conversation.
If I may, just so it's clear in the audience, the rest of this, we are not in opposition to the Department of Ed, and I don't think the Department of Ed is opposition of us. No. This is a philosophical difference that we've run into, and we each have a position on what we think is the best. We've continued to work with Ed. We will always work with them, as you've seen from the examples within there. So don't take it that that's the issue. We've had many discussions. I think we both see the other side. We may not agree with the other side, but as I started from the beginning, we want to have long-term teachers ready, prepared. If we lose the innovation, is this, we're probably going to end up having to cut pedagogy and content classes to make them fit within that timeline. They are going to get more field experience in the school at the cost of that. That's the only way, and I think that's what other programs have done, is cut their courses to be able to get them out into the field. And that's what we're trying. That's the innovation I see in this, is trying not to do that, so they continue to come out with the production that Dr. Shepard has said. We're worried that if they go at that, they're going to lose that great production because we haven't given them all the pedagogy and content that they really need. So that's why we're here with the innovation. We're not far off on percentages. If you average them, we're at 70% and the other's at 80%. It's very close. What's going to be the right answer? I'm hoping the research is going to say maybe it makes no difference if you're within 10%. Maybe the difference doesn't show up till you get to 20 or 30%. But right now, nobody knows that, because if everybody does the same thing, you're never going to know. So this is a chance for the board to step out and make an innovative opportunity to say, let's see if it works. If it doesn't, I can tell you, we'll be the first ones here through the door to say, we want to apply and make a change because we're going to up our hours. And I don't think the Department of Ed or you would say, no, don't up your hours now that you want to do that. If we don't do that, it's going to be very hard for us to come back and fix it.
I just want to echo, I'm sorry.
Ms. Voce.
Oh, well, you know, and I think that's what many other institutions have done. They have cut the hours necessary to achieve the degree in content and pedagogy to meet this requirement. It's sort of the difference between people who will, okay, I can make this work the way you're asking, or I think mine's a little bit better and I want you to consider it. I guess my question to you, Superintendent White, and to Dr. Roberts, is that if we receive this report, do we think that this can be resolved between the department and the university by our December meeting? Do both parties, do we feel that way? And will that then be in sufficient time for the university to implement come the fall semester? So that's my question.
I do, and I am also willing to commit to an accelerated timeline by which we would agree on a resolution in advance of the board meeting so that they could proceed. I'm assuming that the board would feel that if UL and the department agree on something, the board would support it. I'm willing to commit to a shorter timeline in terms of trying to get to that agreement through an intense discussion. I also think that our discussion will be a richer discussion after you have heard LSU's debate as well, because I think hearing another institution in context will be quite helpful to guide the board. But I want to echo what Dr. Roberts said. This is a class act.
Yes, yes,
and,
they are.
They are doing an outstanding job, and you know, he said it perfectly right. We simply have different roles to play, and I think we'll get to an agreement. If we want to try to do it prior to Thanksgiving rather than waiting for a December meeting, I'm good by that.
You know, because I'm a big, I guess, a big judge on outcomes, and they've got a class institution that produces quality candidates throughout the state, and I don't want to be tied to because this piece of paper says this on that particular line. So whether it's innovative on one, I mean, there are social justice and research components are very effective and going out into the schools that first year, assessing these issues in the high-need schools, putting those 18 and 19-year-olds out there doing that is, to me, extremely important, because as candidates graduate from teacher preparation programs, along with the content and the pedagogy, they've got to have a feel for what is happening in high-need areas throughout our state. Some of these components that you're talking about, I think, are very important. But just to resolve this issue, and I realize that we're establishing policy, but we have opened the door for models that can deviate. So if y'all both, Dr. Roberts, would that be a timeline that y'all could work within as well?
We'll do whatever the board tells us to do.
And when he said that, I was looking back to see if any of my universities back there before I answer, because they may hold me to something that, unfortunately, my provost is not in this meeting.
Yeah, this is live streamed, Dr. Roberts.
Oh, well, then I bet.
Oh, man.
I don't want to get you in any trouble.
I didn't realize that part either.
We will work with those. They do want us to have our submissions in for in November, but if we will do our best to work if that's the decision of the board. Clearly, Superintendent White has indicated his agreement to we'll get together and we'll have the rich discussions to come up with something. Hopefully we can get to a point it doesn't have to come back to the board, and we'll do it sooner rather than later so that my group doesn't get angry with me to give an exception, because you're absolutely right. The timelines are important.
Yeah,
Groups are looking to see. We're recruiting right now. Preview day for one of ours is this Saturday. And it's hard for me to look at them. I can tell them we're going to have a residency. We know we'll have one. What it's exactly going to look like, we won't be able to tell them on Saturday to recruit them away from LSU, who's back there, from the other universities, because we don't have an answer. So that's sooner is better than later. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Dr. Jones?
Yeah, I just want to make it clear, as far as I'm concerned, I'm kind of like Ms. Boche. I'm a product person, not a process person on this. I'm concerned with what the outcome is, and I'm concerned with how it impacts the student, how it impacts the student that's taught by the student, and what the ultimate outcome here is. I see a distinct thing here in that you obviously put some deep thought into it and attempted to at least meet our guidelines and where we're trying to go with this thing. But we also have to realize that one size does not fit all in any situation. And in particular, different institutions organize their curriculums in different ways, and different students are a part of one curriculum in one institution and another in another. So I think our innovative model here does allow for some differences, but I do think that we need to get you a decision, and I do think that decision needs to be no later than the December board meeting.
Yeah. Quickly, from a precedent standpoint, we did actually speak with the department prior to our June, and we have moved up the hours since then. So we've been willing to work with the department from the beginning. I think that should be noted to your precedent term.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lewis.
Yeah, I just have one final comment. I agree with all my colleagues, but I just do think we need to have some resolution on this. This was deferred from the August meeting. We've been having numerous conversations, and I agree with Dr. Jones. When we added the innovative piece, it was to make sure that universities were very thoughtful and intentional about meeting those requirements of the model, but acknowledging that everything may not fit. And I'm not being negative Nelly or pessimistic, but I don't think another month or two talking with the department is going to resolve their philosophy, right? And I just think we'll be right back here in December. So I just would like to just see how this falls, but I would definitely like to make a substitute motion to approve, instead of just receiving the report, but approving the innovative models for all those other certification areas under discussion. So
second.
That's my substitute motion, to approve instead of receiving a report.
Okay, approved. The report by Ms. Lewis and seconded by Ms.
No, approving the models and not receiving a report.
Yeah.
I want to approve,
Regarding-
make a decision, and see where that goes.
Yeah, second by Ms. Edmondson. Would you like to repeat?
Could we have a roll call on that?
Yes, 1 second, please.
So the motion on the floor now by Ms. Lewis, seconded by Ms. Edmonston, is to approve the innovative residency model submitted by the University of Louisiana at Lafayette in the areas that were listed from the report. Do you need me to list those out? We all have
No.
that, the
No,
remaining
just-
certification areas.
I believe the superintendent wanted to add something.
Any opposition?
I
Wait,
want
one
to
second.
understand. I want to just make sure that I understand what's being asked. So, may I ask staff, has UL submitted something and that we have brought to the board that has the same content as the proposals that we are proposing be supported to the board? Because it is one thing to talk about the things that have not yet been approved. It's another thing for those things to have been formally brought forth. So I want to just make sure that the board is acting properly before this motion goes forward.
We have received formal requests for the innovative proposal for all the programs. I think the one thing that I would add is that some of the discussion here today is different than what was in the proposal in possibly some positive ways. So I would value the opportunity to be able to speak with the UL leadership again to understand whether or not their proposal is actually fully aligned with the discussion today.
So this raises just one procedural issue, which is that what is in writing has not been, I agree, I think different, not in bad ways, I think in good ways, in ways that I would like to have reconciled, and I actually think could be reconciled fairly quickly. I don't know what exactly procedurally that means, but it raises some issues for me that what you have heard today is not what I've seen on paper, and therefore that we should have a syncing up of those things prior to any consideration of a proposal that we have not recommended to you. I don't know where exactly that leaves the board. It actually leaves me thinking we're pretty close and maybe just need a minute to discuss with UL in a way that could reconcile some of these issues.
Question?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, Superintendent, can you tell us those differences? Would y'all be aware of the differences that they're talking about?
I am not
Maybe
aware.
Assistant
state
Superintendent,
those?
maybe you could,
Yeah.
Assistant
Hannah,
Superintendent.
yeah.
So, for example, in the proposal, it states that for all the programs, there would be 40% of time in residency, but it actually sounds like there's more time provided for in the first semester of residency, and I would rather work through the actual amount of time in residency and approve that rate versus the rate that was included in the proposal. So in your remarks today, it sounds like there's actually more time provided for.
So more like 60 rather than 40?
Right, and I would rather have that on the record as the board approving that fully accurate, updated proposal, which it sounds like was voiced over today, versus the proposal that was submitted to us,
Okay.
which stipulates 40%. Now, I may not be fully aligning, UL's remarks with the proposal, but that, again, I want to make sure that the board is approving a fully accurate, updated model, is my interest.
And is that the only difference?
That's the only difference that I heard,
Okay.
correct.
Could we take a break for a few minutes and let them hash that out?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that we're ready for a vote as a whole on this, whether it's because of procedural issues in terms of what's turned in, or I don't know. I think we definitely need a minute here, or you guys, department, and ULL need a minute.
I have a feeling that if we had 10 minutes to sit
Yeah,
with the leadership
that's
at
what-
UL, we might be able to be in a better position.
Do we need a motion for that?
Do we need a motion to adjourn for 10 minutes? Or recess?
Recess for 10 minutes. Thank you for handling that.
I vote no.
Meeting will come back to order, please. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Please read the motion.
The current motion on the floor made by Ms. Lewis, seconded by Ms. Edmonston, is that the board will approve, the committee will approve the request to offer innovative residency models submitted by the University of Louisiana at Lafayette in the areas listed.
Any further discussion?
May I provide it? I'm sorry.
Something when it's appropriate.
Yes,
May I
Superintendent.
provide an update to the board?
Yes, please.
Thank you. I met, and Assistant Superintendent Deach did, with our colleagues from UL, and we arrived at two conclusions. First, and I think this was not, we did not properly understand it and advertise it, but to me the most innovative piece, or one of the most innovative pieces of what they're doing, is that for the first 2 to 4 weeks of the K-12 school year, their students are going full-time. This is not done in the fall semester in most models. It means that students who are otherwise undergraduates who would typically start college after Labor Day are starting in early August in their school systems. And it actually, by virtue of that innovation, allows their model, which was not counted earlier, to significantly exceed 40% and actually significantly exceed 50%. Therefore, I would ask that the board, given that intensive practicum, please approve the models as submitted, with it being stipulated that they will continue this innovative practice of this intensive practicum, and that we will study the intensive practicum. And I want to express my gratitude to both of our colleagues for the creative spirit that they brought to this, and I'm pleased to say that I think it complies with the intent of the innovative model.
Thank you. Yes, Dr. Bofi.
So I want to thank you again, and I just acknowledge how far you all have come and how much you're willing to work on this, and then also let you know how impressive it is to see the teamwork within your institution. That is something that is just admirable, and I wanted to let you know that. The other thing is I'm going to hold you to is the piece around the research about what's best, and we truly don't know. And so you said, I think it was you, Dr. Roberts, that you would come back to us and say, hey, we need more hours because we're not just meeting the mark. So I don't know what the appropriate timeline is, but I know we're all staying in education in Louisiana. So let's keep looking at it and continuing to have these conversations. I think the most important thing is that we all stay committed to continuous improvement. Because our children are changing, our society is changing, our needs change, and we've got to focus on what we can continue to do to get better so that we're meeting the needs of kids. So thank you so much for always being willing to come to the table and bringing that passion to Acadiana.
Thank you.
Is that
Thank you,
a
Dr.
motion to fund the research so that we can
Well,
go with
I
that?
understand you already have some research funded that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Any further discussion, board members? Any opposition? Dr. Jones, you requested a roll call. Do you still?
That's not necessary if there's no dissension.
Okay. Motion carried. Approved. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Your next item is on page 120, item 2.6, consideration of the request submitted by Louisiana State University at Baton Rouge to offer an innovative residency model. Additional backup documentation has been distributed. The department recommendation is to approve the innovative model for instrumental and vocal music, and to receive the report regarding the updated innovative model for the remaining certification areas.
So move.
Dr. Bofi, first. Second, Mr. Garvey. Any discussion? Report?
Would you like me to? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, go
Okay,
right
thank you.
ahead.
Members, this is a similar situation. Again, as you know, we have a long-standing relationship with the leadership at LSU across different divisions and have great respect for them. I would say that you're seeing fewer proposals here for advancement, and you're seeing a larger number of pathways which we have some concerns. I would also say that in some of those pathways, the percentages were further away from agreement than we were in the UL case. And in some instances, we're talking about a 20% rather than a 40, 50, 60% number. I don't attribute that to any ill intent. It's simply an earnest, different interpretations about what is innovative about this model. And so I submit them to you for your consideration, but we do not feel that we are at this moment in time in a position to move ahead with most of the pathways. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Do you want to clear those off again? Get the approval. I'm sorry. Do you want to clear the approvals off? Oh, yeah. Let's do that.
So for the first motion, we have Dr. Bophy and Mr. Garvey. We would like to clear the ones that are just on the table for approval first, please.
I'd like to offer a substitute motion that we bifurcate these two issues and address the first issue first. Approving what the department is asking us to approve.
Yes. So first, Mr. Garvey, and second, Ms. Edmonston. Okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand what our substitute is.
So we have approved the part of the motion that asked for the instrumental and vocal music, and then we will take up the receive part of the motion.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Would you have Ms. Landry repeat what is the receive part of the motion? Can you just state it real?
So for LSU, the approval was for the undergraduate and post-baccalaureate pathway for instrumental music K-12 and vocal music K-12 in both undergraduate and graduate. The receive item is for biology. In the undergraduate pathway, biology 612, chemistry 612, mathematics 612, physics 612, and vocational agriculture 612, all in the undergraduate pathways.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to go on with public comments. All right. Any opposition? No opposition? Okay. Good. It's approved. Thank you. Public comments. We have James Madden, Sharon Besson. Please come forward. We'll have about 4 of you at the table. Sean Gardner, Alex Jarrow, and sitting behind them, first row, Joey Blackburn, Eric Smith, Christy Stair, and Cynthia Peterson. We will begin with, it's right to left, Dr. Madden. You, yes, sir. And we'll move forward. And what, he has 3 minutes? Wait, does he? No, you're going to report, so take your time. Thank you.
I guess I can be here now. All right, my name is James Madden. I'm the Patricia Hewlett Bowden Distinguished Professor of Mathematics at LSU, the co-director of the Gordon A. Kane Center for STEM Literacy, and director of special projects in the LSU College of Science. In the last capacity, I oversee the Go Teach Secondary STEM Teacher Preparation Program. I want to thank the officials of the Louisiana Department of Education who have been advising the College of Science on the new residency requirements. They have been considerate, patient, and helpful in every exchange. I fully agree that the new teachers should have the benefit of a robust year-long residency. I think that our 2080 model achieves the desired outcomes. A residency model with more time in the second to last semester is not possible for the overwhelming majority of Go Teach candidates. To require this would cause a severe decline in enrollments and, as a consequence, in all likelihood, the end of the program. Go Teach is a University of Texas U-Teach replication. It offers undergraduate degrees in biology, chemistry, mathematics, and physics, with a concentration in secondary education and full certification upon graduation. Go Teach degrees are full-strength LSU College of Science degrees that normally take 4 years to complete. By careful time management and rebudgeting of elective coursework, we have managed to compress the content requirements into 3.5 years while including up to 200 hours of clinical and field experiences during the first 7 semesters. The last semester at present is a full-time student teaching experience. The advanced coursework, typically taken in the last 2 semesters of an LSU College of Science degree, is challenging for our best students. For most students, it would be impossible to combine this with a 2-day-per-week residency in semester 7. All right. The model that we presently have has producing teachers with excellent retention rates. I have a table in the documents that I've given you, but it shows that our graduates are retained at 95% or above from each year up to the 5th year. I've also included some letters from superintendents who attest to the quality of the graduates under the present model. The remarks they make include, do I have, what, I think the timer has disappeared.
Oh, you're good.
Right?
Yeah, you're good.
Go Teach has been responsive in meeting our district's high expectations, providing well-prepared graduates. Go Teach has proven to be a valuable resource for us as we struggle to overcome the challenges of our district. Over the past 5 years, Ascension Public Schools has retained 94% of the Go Teach teachers upon completing their residencies in our schools. This is from David Alexander, the superintendent. The director of human resources in West Baton Rouge Parish says, as an employer and recruiter, this is Barbara Burke, excuse me, as the employer and recruiter of Go Teach graduates, I can attest to the fact that they are well prepared for the classroom. From the beginning, they are model employees. They mature into valuable instructional leaders. And Hollis Milton at West Feliciana Parish says, the teachers that we have received from the Go Teach program have uniformly been well prepared for their role as primary content teachers in the classroom. In fact, this program is our only reliable source of quality STEM teachers. Go Teach is a unique asset that provides highly prepared STEM teachers not available from other teacher preparation programs. I want to point out that we're not petitioning to retain the model that we presently have, but to substantially change what goes on in semester 7. That is, presently, our candidates spend about 30 hours in the classroom in semester 7. We're going to change that so that they have an intensive experience full-time for several days at the beginning of the semester, and so that throughout the semester they're in the school on a regular basis, often experiencing full days on a regular basis. We want to focus on identifying those specific experiences that make a difference in their employment and assure that they have those experiences. And our plan is to use feedback from our graduates in order to focus in as specifically as possible on what is needed so that we can accomplish everything that a model with far more time devoted to it would accomplish, yet with a smaller amount of percentage. Thank you.
Next, Ms. Sharon. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm Sharon Beeson.
Yeah, just push the...
There we go. Sharon Beeson. I'm the Go Teach program manager. I have been working with this program first as a classroom teacher when they first redesigned back in 2000 as a mentor teacher, and I've been at LSU for 12 years as the program manager. This unique program is our students are actually getting their content degrees, so they are getting the exact same biology, physics, chemistry, and math degree as other students that are pursuing those degrees. Our concern is we want to make sure that we keep true to that, because the students start in their freshman year just checking us out a little bit, and there's a lot of students that come in that they know what subjects they like, but they're not 100% what they want for a degree. I personally changed my major 4 times. before I became a math teacher. I can tell you that at least 20 to 25% of our students that check out our program and are teaching did not intend to teach when they started their freshman year. But they have gone through our classes, they found their passion, and they're excellent teachers. If we have to modify a content degree to where our students are not getting the exact same content degree as their peers, I feel that we're going to lose at least that and possibly more. So that's why we're asking. We have the retention rates. We have the support from the school systems. We're doing all types of collaborative work. We want to work with BESE and with the State Department. We want our students to be successful. We want to give them those options, and we don't want to decrease anything because it's hard enough to get quality STEM teachers as it is. And so we respectfully ask that you consider, I know 20% sounds like not very much, but considering that all of the semesters prior to, our students start teaching their very first semester at LSU in our very first course. So they're getting a lot of experience, diversified experience, differentiated instruction, and we want to be able to keep that quality. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean?
I'm sorry, Sean, you're right.
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Sean Gardner. I am a senior physics major at LSU with a concentration in secondary education. So I'm in the Go Teach program, and this is the 7th semester, which means that I'll be teaching lessons and I've done some observations in the classroom. What I liked about this is that I am a true physics major. When I graduate, I'll get the same degree that my classmates take, even though my concentration is not in the physics field. My classes are not watered down. They are pretty hard. If the field experience were to be increased to 40%, I would definitely have to push off my graduation date because I would not be able to spend the time required in my physics classes to present my most quality work. I would have to take maybe one upper-level physics course a semester while doing the field experience, and then another semester on top of that before my student teaching in order to complete the required physics courses. If the concern for this semester of student teaching that would be my 8th semester is that I will not be ready to enter the classroom on a more intensive basis, I can tell you confidently that through discussions with my current Go Teach mentors, recent graduates and participants in the educational field, and students that are currently student teaching, I will be very prepared. I've done field experience in my previous semesters in the Go Teach program, going through middle school, lower school, and a couple of years of high school now, and I feel very prepared. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Alexis?
Hi, I'm Alexa Jaro. I am a current teacher at East Ascension High School. I am a Algebra 1 teacher to 9th graders. I went through the Go Teach program and graduated in 2016 in May. I'm highly qualified in math due to that my degree is math based, and then I have that concentration in secondary education. So I feel that having that content, I'm able to present the correct instruction and provide my students with content knowledge and, present it to them and help them to better understand math, because everyone hates math. Like, most of the students now hate math. So being able to present using that my content knowledge and present it to the kids and help them better understand it has helped me as a teacher. Going through the Go Teach program, from day one, year one, you get the field experience. So you're not just, even if you do the semester 7, like, you're getting those hours in the classroom from year 1 to year 4 when you become a student teacher. And I feel like the Go Teach program has adequately prepared me for my first year. It's my 3rd year now, and I feel like I've been prepared, and I'm in Ascension Parish, and I feel like I was highly qualified, and my admin is very pleased with me and what I have accomplished so far.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Alexis. All right, next on deck. Joey, Eric, Kristen, and there's Cynthia. Thank you, Dr. Madden. If you don't mind, you can sit right there and wait. Yeah, we may have questions after. Right, gentlemen? Joey? And whoever. Okay.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm Dr. Kristen Starr, Associate Professor in the Department of Agricultural and Extension Education and Evaluation at LSU. First of all, thank you for giving us the opportunity to address the board this morning to discuss our vocational agriculture program and its innovative proposal. We agree wholeheartedly that rigorous student teaching experiences are absolutely critical. As a former high school ag teacher myself, I know what walking into the classroom that first year is like, and it's something that we fight very hard to make sure our students are going to be prepared for. With all of this in mind, LSU AEEE has expanded our proposal, the innovative proposal, to help make sure that we were meeting some of your concerns and recommendations in addition to what we know is really critical for our students. Ag teachers nationally are charged with implementing a total agriculture education program. So what that means is agriculture teachers across the U.S. are not only teaching classroom and lab instruction, but they are also working with students in leadership in the National FFA organization. They're supervising student ag experience projects, or SAEs, and that's all part of their expectation as being a high school ag teacher. In Louisiana, to accomplish this goal, Louisiana ag teachers are 12-month employees, which is a little different than some of our other teachers. Louisiana Bulletin 741 outlines that the minimum 12-month duties of our ag teachers include advising a local student FFA chapter, participating in summer events with students, participating in summer professional development, and supervising SAEs throughout the year. This total program model is nationally considered a critical component of having a successful ag ed teacher prep curriculum. Because of this, our innovative residency model is centered on providing our students with a similar experience to 12-month ag teachers. We want them to see that process and walk through that process themselves. Students are placed with a mentor teacher the spring prior to their residency year, so they're placed almost a full year in advance. They'll engage in 180 hours of summer residency with their mentor teacher and students, and 50 hours during the fall semester. 40 of those fall residency hours will take place as a result of conversations we've had with the board to ensure that they get the beginning of the school year, see how those courses are set up and established, and make sure they understand how to work through classroom expectations. The summer and fall hours equate to approximately 42% of the instructional time. During the spring semester, our students actually move to the community in which they're student teaching. During that time, they are in a 100% placement, full-time student teaching. We don't have ag programs in every school in Louisiana. We don't have ag programs in every school in Baton Rouge. Far from it, actually. We only have about 5 programs within approximately, Dr. Smith and I were talking about this, about an hour that we feel truly qualify, which means they have a teacher with 5 years of experience, and they offer that total program model that I talked about. So we send our students as far north as Winfield. We've had students placed in Texas. We've had students placed literally all over the state. So they have to move that spring semester, excuse me. Due to the limited number of the programs right near us, we feel that one of the best things we can do is get them that summer experience working as Louisiana Bulletin 741 expressly says our ag teachers should do, and then get those hours throughout that full year so that it mimics what a 12-year ag teacher does in their program. We strongly support the initiative to develop more rigorous clinical experiences. That's something we're truly passionate about, and it's something we want to make sure our students have. We believe our model is going to provide a really excellent experience for our students. We're really excited about some of the changes that we've made. We believe you guys should have copies of those changes as well, how it lines up with the 12-month ag teachers. And we hope that you'll consider the approval of vocational agriculture, and we'll be available to answer any additional questions that you guys have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
May I make one note for the
Sure.
board? Members, and first of all, I want to thank you for that presentation. That is new information to us on some of what you've said, and the new information you've submitted reflects a new application. I want to just voice to the board that from my perspective, resolves any concerns that we have regarding the ag program. And we can deal with this obviously at the end, but my preference at this stage would be to recommend approval of that program in light of the information presented. I thank you.
Thank you. Next. Either one. Either one.
I don't think after.
Are you all with the ag department?
3 of us are.
Okay. No? Yeah.
Excuse me.
You're satisfied. I know. Go, right?
You waive your time. Yes. Next.
Hello. Hello. Is this on? Okay. I am Dr. Cynthia Peterson. I am the Dean of the College of Science at LSU. I am tenured in the Department of Biological Sciences, and I'm really here in support of the colleagues who are seated behind me. One thing I want you to know is my perspective as Dean. So we have over 2,000 students in the College of Science. We're really proud of these students. You heard from two of them, very capable young people with bright futures. I want you to know as Dean that I'm super proud of having the Go Teach program in the college. This is a recruitment feature for me that I make sure to highlight to any students and parents of students who have interest in the College of Science. We have worked over the last year understanding the new expectations for residency requirements. We've been in active discussions with many individuals, including some at this table. Over the last year, we have established a task force for the Go Teach program that has representatives from across all 5 of our departments. You have heard our proposed adaptations to try to meet the spirit of the new recommendations, and we really appreciate the opportunity now to address the board about these changes and about the success of our program. So again, I'm here in support of my colleagues who you heard from in the first set of comments.
Thank you. Joey, Eric? Either? You wave. Are you sure? No, I think he's going to speak now.
No, I'm waving.
You're waving. Okay, well, thank you.
We're good. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
on the department.
Thank
Agricultural
you.
education. I'm the Executive Director of Ag Education, also the State Future Farmers of America Advisor, and I'm here in support of the proposal with LSU and here to confirm the 12-month employment and all of the professional development that they would get in the 12-month time. But I feel like I'm holding somebody's seat that may need to answer questions from the College of Science. As you know, the Ag Education degree out of LSU comes out of the College of Ag, so I really feel like I'm taking somebody's seat, if you don't mind.
Questions? 1 second. Yes, Superintendent White?
Would it be helpful for me to give the board sort of an overview of the issues related to the science?
Sure, he's wanting to give an overview. Absolutely.
I think, so members, first of all, I appreciate Dr. Madden and the whole team at LSU. I also just want to thank in particular the gentleman who's an aspiring teacher and our relatively new, not new, but relatively new now teacher in Ascension Parish. It's a sadly uncommon thing for us to be able to attract such highly talented, knowledgeable people into our profession from the STEM fields. And your dean spoke very eloquently to this, and I deeply appreciate your commitment to it, and your support of your program is also commendable. So I thank you. I look forward to seeing you in your schools. I think that the concern about the LSU path is very simple. It's just a question of, is 20%, so 1 day a week in the first semester, does that embody the policy that was passed? And there are programs that also require math and science majors who are ultimately teachers. So for example, Louisiana Tech is a school that is largely organized around the idea of math and science and engineering majors who then end up becoming teachers if they go through their teacher training program. They have a model with 40% in the freshman year. And so the argument that was made is that we don't want to compromise meeting the major requirements. Absolutely, you can't and shouldn't. But Louisiana Tech made modifications to the timing at which courses are delivered, meaning the time in the day, and made adjustments to the College of Education coursework. And we have not heard today from the College of Education. I know that's not a negative, but their curriculum is a large piece of these students' days as well. And at Louisiana Tech, the adjustment was made to that side of the curriculum. There was not a compromise made to reduce the major, the STEM major coursework, but the pedagogy coursework, the methods coursework was adjusted, and the timing of major courses in the day was adjusted. which allowed them to get to 2 days a week in the first semester. We simply don't believe that only going to the site 1 day a week is enough of a replication of what it means to be a professional educator. That is the only disagreement we have. The concept of the full major, science, math, we not only support but fully endorse and appreciate, and respect you coming here to voice that perspective today.
Yes, Ms. Voce.
Okay. I am a big supporter of the Go Teach program. I wish that we were closer to the Baton Rouge area and could take advantage of some of the candidates that you have. We have talked a great deal about the STEM initiative in the state of Louisiana, and we're looking at candidates who will have an undergraduate degree basically in one of the STEM fields, 44 hours at least in a required core area. This not only ensures that you have a candidate who is really well grounded in the content, it also elevates the discussion on any school, in any school planning area, when you have young people coming out and joining your faculty who have that type of grasp and knowledge of the content area. It helps the other teachers on your particular faculties. When we had the initial discussion of this Believe and Prepare program, and when we started this 2 years ago, not Believe and Prepare, but when we approved this, and we talked about the innovative models, this same discussion took place, if you remember, and the Go Teach program was mentioned as, well, of course, that would be an innovative model that you would apply for. So to me, that sort of validated, that was helping, at least me, understand that this would be a model that would be a little bit different. Now, you talk about the Louisiana Tech program. It was my understanding Louisiana Tech was a 40-60, 40% first semester, 60% second semester. This is a 20-80, same number of days, just a little bit different in its configuration. And we've got candidates through the Go Teach program that are more well-grounded in that curriculum area, that is going to bring a wealth of knowledge not only with that content to help faculties, high school faculties that we already have that may not be as well-grounded in those particular areas. So I am, I think this is probably one of the best models that you could have, that the firm grasp of content plus the model, and these kids are in, excuse me, I didn't mean to say kids, but these young people or candidates are in the classrooms throughout their first 7 semesters. It may not be on those specified days, and as long as we're ensuring that they're there in that semester 7 at the beginning of the school year, and that we put as much time as we can, to me this is truly an innovative model, and this is one that we talked about when we first approved this as being, or as falling in that category. So I would be in support of approving this program.
Dr. Jones.
I have a little different perspective. I have to go back to about a half century ago when I started my teaching career. I did a semester of student teaching, and in the spring, and I got hired on the Friday before school started in the fall, and I was handed a roll book, a blank teacher planning book, and a teacher's edition of a textbook. And it was a year later before I realized where I was and what I was doing. I'm sorry, I just have a hard time seeing how 20% is a sufficient number that first semester that looks towards the model we're trying to do. I think what we were looking to do when we went with the residency model was to prepare teachers like other professionals are prepared, that they have a well-grounded experience in actually what it means to be in the classroom and in all of the things that go with it. And I just struggle with 20%. From my admittedly unlearned, I don't know that much about Go Teach, but it appears to me that the adjustment here was to make our program meet what you already had rather than your program adjust to what we are looking to do. And so maybe I'm wrong, and Superintendent White, you'd have to say, I mean, has there been any meaningful give and take on both sides of the equation where there's some difference from what it was before we started this process, or is it essentially are we where we were when we started?
I don't want to say that categorically there's not been adjustments made and not been a lot of dialogue had, and I should also just say that on a number of fronts, Jim Madden and Frank Newbrander, I mean, there are not closer people in the academic community to this board and this agency. They've done tremendous work. At the same time, I think it's fair to say that this really is the one case where I have felt like we are at somewhat where Ms. Vaucher described. It's kind of the model that was, and we're saying there are new requirements, and they're kind of saying, well, this model works, and that's a fair perspective. I'm not saying it comes from a bad place. Where we've been challenging is, are there different ways of doing business, in particular as it relates to the time, place, and particularly the pedagogical coursework. And I think it's fair to say that there's been a lot of discussion back and forth, a lot of very good faith discussion, but probably fair to say not a lot of movement in that discussion.
Well, I'm comfortable with the VOAG piece. I'm very, being a former superintendent of schools with a lot of VOAG teachers, I know how that works, and they are 12-month, and I would assume that any responsible program would involve the students in that with those people during the summer months, because that's a prime opportunity for them to do that. I'm more concerned with the science subjects and the other things there. It's one thing to have people who know the subject. It's another thing to have people who know how to teach. And just because you know the subject doesn't mean that you know how to teach, and just because you know how to teach doesn't mean you know the subject, as we've found out very painfully over the last 25, 30 years. So, I would hope that somehow or another we could blend something together that makes sure that that we do have this. And I look at teacher turnover, and over the years I've looked at teacher turnover, and my experience with it as a principal and as a superintendent was that most of the turnover happens in the first 3 or 4 years when people find out that it's not what they thought it was, and the experience is not what they envisioned, and they don't. Year after year after year, when we were doing professional development, it was always classroom management, classroom management. Teachers knew the subject, but they didn't know how to manage kids, and so, I look at this, and one of the things that appealed to me about the year-long residency was the idea that our people would be going into those classrooms more qualified at the outset on how to deal with things like classroom management, having done it periodically. It's one thing to do it under the supervision of a teacher, when you're a student teacher and the teacher's solving your problems for you. It's another thing to do it when it's your problem and you've got to figure out how to solve it. So I have to say I looked at your model, and I looked at the ULL model, and I was more convinced that ULL had put more time into trying to meet the objectives of what we're doing than honestly I felt that you folks had changed to it. And I may be misjudging, I'll concede that, but I just wanted on the record that I just can't see how 20% gets close to what we're trying to do.
Can I respond to this?
Madam Chair. Dr. Madden, yes.
Yeah. Well, we have changed the design of the program substantially. In the current model, the students, as I said, spend only about 30 hours in the 7th semester in the school. So we're proposing to change that to over 100 hours, or 120 hours in the school. So we're quadrupling the amount of time that they're spending actually at the school site. That's a substantial change, and that has a profound impact on the other parts of the program. I mean, that's going to require students to move to distant locations on a regular basis throughout their 7th semester. We think we can handle it. we don't think even that is going to be neutral with respect to our ability to recruit. The second thing that I point out is that I'm a mathematician, and 20% means something precise to me, provided that we know how we're measuring it. My impression is that there are numerous different frameworks in which the 20% figure is arrived at. I've tried to, when I say 20%, I try to say we have 20% that's documented on a clock, we have 20% that is distributed to the most critical events and occurrences during the school year. I don't think that saying that 1 out of 5 days is ipso facto what we need, or 2 out of 5 days, or 3 out of 5 days. It really is highly dependent on what happens in those 5 days. And I'm sure that if somebody is spending 5 days a week at school, then there are some days when what they're experiencing is not going to have a profound effect on them in the end.
But Dr. Madden, is it your position that every hour that your students are spending on methods coursework is better spent in that coursework than it would be spent under the tutelage of a mentor educator?
No.
So why are we not converting some of the pedagogical coursework that's not out of the math and science departments into time in the field under the tutelage
That's
of a
exactly
mentor?
what we've done.
And those courses are all offered
But
after school
you're
hours.
doing it just to play this out mathematically.
No.
To 120 hours.
Yes.
Now, there are 90 days in the second semester.
Right.
On average, that means you're talking about 1 1/3 hours per day across 90 days, on average. 100, right? Am I right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So that does not strike me as even getting anywhere close to a replication of an authentic experience that a teacher has every day. And I say this with respect, the other institutions with whom we've been engaged, I think, have created a much greater replication of the real-world experience of teachers. And some of them that I have mentioned have done it within the confines of quite rigorous requirements for math and science majors. So I guess I don't understand how it is that if you agree that some of the methods coursework out of the College of Education could be converted into better spent time under the tutelage of a mentor educator, how we should approve a program that only provides 1 1/3 hours a day on average in even the second semester of actual tutelage under a mentor educator.
No, this is not an accurate depiction of what the distribution of time is in the program. In the second semester, during most of the time, they're 5 days a week in school.
Okay. I thought you said it was 120 hours in the second semester.
No.
First semester.
In the first semester.
First semester.
Fair enough.
Right. So we have, if we want to do this math, we have 90 days in the schools. During the final year of school, we have 90 days in the school.
So
and the point, what we're doing is we're putting 80% of those 90 days in semester 8 and 20% of those 90 days in semester 7. And what LaTeX is doing is putting 60% of those 90 days in semester 8 and 40% of those days in semester 7. Now, so we recognize that we're not putting students in the school in semester 7 for the same amount of time that LaTeX is. The way that we compensate for that is we say we are going to identify with great care what those experiences are that play a critical role. Right? We are going to be interviewing graduates to find out where, when, and how their experiences have served them, and where, when, and how they are finding that they're ill-equipped to deal with something that arises in the classroom. We've done that recently, and we found out, for example, that one thing that has never been mentioned in many of these discussions is that teachers need experience in interacting with the leadership at the school. This is a complex problem in itself. Right? There are, other things that we found out is, of course, our teachers mention the classroom management problem. And classroom management problem, there are different phases during the school year during which the classroom management problem is handled in different fashions. So at the beginning of the school year, there are certain norms that need to be established, and there are certain procedures that people follow in order to do that. We plan to put them into the school for several consecutive days at the beginning of the semester. So I understand that we have a model that is different in numbers. I wish that we could do better advertising, but I think that when you get beyond the bare numbers and into the mechanisms that we're trying to institute, that we're truly trying to address all those things that are of concern to the board, and we're trying to leverage the scientific attitudes that we have in order to narrow in and focus in on what's most essential in order to compensate for the lack of time.
May I comment? I also wanted to address, we have changed up when our classes are offered. 100% of our pedagogy classes past the first freshman classes are offered at 3:30 or later. So none of our pedagogy classes are offered during the school time. The biggest struggle that we have in content majors, for example, our sciences, is they're in their 4,000 level courses, which are 4 credit hours. They require labs, which take 3 hours. It's very difficult when you're on that type of level to try to move around courses in those.
But what I fail to understand is, and please take this with just coming from my own experience and what I understand of the literature about applied practice, I do not understand how we can create an experience that attempts to replicate a true teacher expenditure of energy, a true experience as a professional, and say that it only comprises 1 day a week in the first semester, which for a new teacher is, as Dr. Jones said, a completely transformative, vulnerable, and discombobulating experience. The thing that this very initiative is trying to do is to eliminate the idea that we place people in the classroom who are having an alien experience, who have never had the experience before. That makes the first semester, in a sense, even more important than the second semester, because we want to stop placing people in the classroom who are sitting there looking around and saying, I've never done this before. And yet this model, contrary to every other model that this board has approved, only allows 1 day, an average of 1 hour and 20 minutes per day for a whole semester. 1 day per week, an average of 1 hour and 20 days per day. One hour and 20 minutes. I just don't see how that gets at this experience. And I recognize that it's with the best of intentions. If I can make an observation as to why I think this is happening, it's because you have such a huge and complicated program, institution. You have a deep investment in the colleges themselves and the departments themselves in this program in an uncommon and admirable way. But what it means is that when we have this conversation, we're having separate conversations with the College of Education from with the academic departments. And I have to hypothesize that there is, to some extent, therefore, it's very hard to facilitate a collective discussion when you have all of these different discussions going on. If I'm wrong, then I would like to understand how it is possible that you would arrive at the conclusion that only 1 day a week is the appropriate way to introduce a professional into teaching.
I think for us, a lot of it is because of our program, the way it's designed. It is an apprenticeship type program. I know you were saying you were trying to go along the lines with other professions. That's why we're starting in the freshman year. Our students are not thrown out after graduation and trying to figure out what to do. And I would love to bring Alexa back in to answer any specific questions on how well prepared. They do have their August experience where they're in the school all day long before LSU starts, so that they understand what a school year begins with. And I know we're saying the one day, of course that will look different for different students depending on their schedules. Perhaps they'll be with their mentor teacher and they can go to the first and second classes of the day, you know, multiple days during the week. It's very difficult. It's going to have to be on an individual basis on how we meet this, but we are trying to get a minimum. And again, if our students are able to, and they can tell you now, they are always asked to do more than the minimum. That's just what we're requiring, and they're out there doing that. So they are experiencing all these things. They have really great relationships with their mentors that's sharing information with them. They go to PLT meetings, they go to all types of meetings at school. If their teacher's there, they're there. And so they are definitely well prepared. So I do not think we're doing a disservice. I think we are truly preparing them well. And when they graduate, that's not the end of it. They see us on a regular basis their entire first year of teaching. We are there to support them 100%, and they know that. Even the ones that go out of state, we support them 100%.
Thank you. Anything else? You're good? Ms. Jones?
Thank you.
Ms.
Okay, I'm trying to understand. So a huge proponent of the residency as it's been designed. I believe what we're testing there, as the superintendent has said, is really time in the field,
right,
being directly correlative to a teacher getting a much more thoughtful ramp up into teaching, which resonates. That's been my lived experience as well. I'm curious, and yet I'm still compelled by the notion of innovative practice. Like I believe it. I think we need more of it in education in general. We don't spend a lot of time on R&D in education in general, and so any opportunity to really take thoughtful, deliberative chances and learn something new is compelling to me. What I'm trying to understand is there are you testing something different? So if the initial day long is what you're proposing, what hypothesis are you testing that you think will be true by doing it the way that you're doing it that otherwise would not be true if you actually went down the path as it's been designed in policy? That's what I really need to understand.
Yeah, well, the hypothesis is that we can identify those specific experiences that are important and supply them.
Okay.
And we can do that in 20% of time. I'd like to respond to what you said, Superintendent, because our concern is, number one, the recruitment issue. And we feel that we have a recruitment system that works very well under the present, distribution of time requirements. We are modifying that. We're modifying it as much as we think we can, as much as we think is possible, and still get the recruitment. I think that if we go to a 40-60 model, we simply make this no longer a 4-year program. It becomes a 4.5-year program. I understand that, I have presented you with the information here from LaTeX. This is on the paper that I gave you. But there are some profound differences between the LSU model and the LaTeX model. For one thing, the LaTeX model allows students to major in mathematics, minor in education, and receive their degree without being certified. That's a possibility. That's a track that they can follow. We don't allow that in Go Teach. You must get certified in order to get your degree. Second thing is that LSU requires 44 hours of mathematics. LaTeX requires only 36. And I have to confess that I have a lot of trouble finding out exactly what the structure of the LaTeX program is. Just last night I was reviewing other data about what their usual math major looks like, and the usual math major, as I understand it, has far more than 36 hours of mathematics because it includes a number of electives. But I have to say, I'm not claiming anything here. I'm just saying that I have not, after a lot of work, been able to find information that is as precise as I would like. Another thing to point out is I think we have the same number of days in our residency as LaTeX has. It's just that we're dividing them differently. And if you're interested in how genuine the experience is, well, how genuine is it to teach 3 days a week? Don't most teachers teach 5 days a week? And that's what we're providing. In the spring semester, they're teaching 5 days a week.
Dr. Madden,
Dr.
Madden, we have a follow-up question. If I just might follow up on my question, I want to make sure I fully understand you.
Right.
Is there something distinct about not having it happen in the first semester? It seems like that's also a point of distinction. What are you testing that leads you to believe not doing that in the first semester would yield better results than doing it in the first semester? The number of hours that teachers and other programs. Why?
Our proposal is that we can, by carefully identifying what experiences are needed, provide in the time frame that we've specified an experience that is as good as an experience that is simply 2 days a week.
It's their content courses that they need to take in fall.
When you're talking about other programs, when you're talking about a program that is 2 days a week, how are those days chosen? Why are those days chosen? What happens in those days? Is it just enough that there's 2 days a week? Or are there special days? Are there days on which exceptional things happen? Right? And how do we identify those exceptional things? What are the exceptional things? Right? How do you deal with the first test? How do you deal with returning the first test? Right? How do you deal with a student who's been absent for a large number of days? How do you there's all number of things that you need to deal with. How do you deal with the first grading period? How do you deal with parents? Right? There are specific things that people need to be able to do, not just be able to be there 2 days a week. And that's what we want to narrow our focus on and assure that we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Edmondson.
And what you just reiterated, you had said it before, but how are you proposing to get that information on what do you do when you have the first test?
First of all, survey the graduates.
Okay.
Because our graduates can give us information about what were the problems that they encountered. Because, yes, they report to us that there are specific things that they would like more experience with. We can provide that. Second thing is we can keep in touch, better touch, right? Refine the information that we get from our candidates while they're experiencing it. We can use a number of technologies to do this so that we're in touch with them on a continuous basis. But I think that, frankly, we're proposing a research initiative of some sort here, in that there are questions that I certainly don't know the answer to as to what is that specific event, what are those specific number of hours. I think there was recently a book called, I think it was called Bursts. It says that in human affairs, events take place in very brief time periods. The critical events take place in brief time periods. There's oftentimes a long periods of inactivity with sudden periods in which important things happen. So the question would be, is a model like this applicable to the residency experience? If it is, then we can we use the real question is how efficiently can we use the time?
Thank you, Dr. Madden. Any other questions?
I just have a comment. I just have a comment. I've just been listening to all the different conversations, and I know the intention. I think Ms. Vaucher really, she started that in her preamble of her comments. I think the intent of the residency model was valid, and then when we decided to add the innovative residency model, we knew for a fact that Go Teach would be one of those models that would probably come under that umbrella. And I guess my whole angst with this whole conversation and just the back and forth is that they're really making a vital effort to really improve the experience that these teachers are having in a more intentional way, right? So they're not really focusing on the quantity of the amount of time that these students are in the classroom. They're working on the quality and trying to be very specific, very intentional about what those experiences and opportunities that really help mold and shape that teacher experience. And so I just think we need to heighten the level of conversation here, especially because last month we spent 30 minutes talking about how we're in a crisis with middle school math and science here in Louisiana. We have a teacher shortage in math and science. This is a replicable model. Outcomes, are irrefutable. And so I think it goes back to my previous comment about this research consortium. Dr. Madden, he alluded to that again about maybe this being another potential research project on what those intentional opportunities should be, to really give us insight on what the appropriate percentages should be in these various models. And so I don't want the lack of approval to be a bottleneck and a gridlock in this whole process of us trying to really expand the pipeline in a high need area. We've been talking about the need for math and science teachers since I've been on this board, before I was on this board. This is an excellent model. They're producing some of the most, innovative teachers in this content around the state. And so I guess I'm just saying this is another case that maybe we need to study, but at the end of the day, we have not proven that this model is not giving these students the quality experience, that they're not being successful in the classroom. We heard from a current teacher, we heard from somebody that's in the process, and until we get data that's proving that we're not retaining these students, these educators in the classroom with this model, I just think it's a moot point, right? I just think until we get the data that disproves that the retention is not where it needs to be, we need to move forward. This is a great model, and I just think because it's a high need area, we don't really need to be providing barriers for programs that's successful here.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. And if you don't mind, board members, I'd like to interject. We have another speaker, Dr. Frank Newbrander. Please identify yourself, Dr. Frank, and your agency.
Yeah, my name is Frank Newbrander. I'm professor of mathematics. Today I'm only professor of mathematics when I'm here. My side job, I'm also the director of the Kane Center at LSU. I lead the LSU STEM Pathways project and many other educational outreach initiatives that come out of the Kane Center at LSU. What I want to say is very brief. I want to answer the superintendent, what the main problem is, what we are having at LSU with the Go Teach program in getting in line with the residency requirements. So first of all, I think everyone who knows us that we are 100% supporters of residencies, that we think this is a great idea, it's overdue the discussion, that we want to go in this way, that hopefully we can create post-bac opportunities which have not only a one-year residency but a two-year residency, that we have to move this way. That is not the issue. The issue is a very simple one, that at LSU you cannot put a one-year residency in a content major in mathematics, physics, chemistry, or biology. As simple as that. What we have done at LSU, squeezing in the 100% teaching, the 5-day teaching in the second semester of the senior year, that took us a year. That is difficult enough to take out half a year out of the curriculum for an undergraduate major in chemistry, physics, mathematics, and in biology. That's hard. Basically, what you have to decide, either you close down Go Teach, or you insist of a 40-80 model or whatever it is, because at the end, it is not possible. As simple as that.
I have a question.
One second. Yes, Dr. Bofi, you may go.
So there was a comment, well, I have questions about outcomes of the Go Teach program. I'm not sure that I know where that data is or that I've seen that data, so I have questions about that. Questions about retention, but then you also said something about your connections to the students in their first year of teaching. Mm-hmm. And so I'd like to know specifically what those commitments are and what it looks like.
So in the Go Teach program, we have what's classified as master teachers. I'm the program manager, but I'm also a master teacher. There's 3 of us. Those are former high school or middle school math or science teachers. So we work with our students throughout with the apprenticeship style program from freshman year to their senior year of student teaching. Once they graduate, we still have any commitment they need. They have our phone numbers, they can call us. We reach out to them on a regular basis and see what's going on. We have gone into their classroom and helped with an activity or a project that they wanted to implement in their classroom. Anything that they need, we're there to help them with. We don't schedule like every Monday we're going to go see a certain new teacher, but we do have regular contact with them. And they are, I personally have gotten phone calls in the evening, on the weekends, from a teacher that's a first year teacher saying, okay, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed and what can I do? And, you know, talking. And sometimes that's all that a teacher needs is to feel like they've got a shoulder to support. But we're there to support them with any type of pedagogy, content support, things along those lines.
So, for my fellow board members, I think there are a couple of possibilities here. This concept of the efficiency of experience is something that's very intriguing to me, and I think deserves some investigation. I'm not going to make commitments beyond that, but I think there's something behind the notion of efficiency of experience. The other piece is you guys are telling us that you can't do anything within that last year, but that you already have structures around, or any more than what you're already doing. You already have structures around beyond the program, like post-program participation.
Yes.
And I would encourage some conversations between the department and the Go Teach program around what that could look like more specifically. Because if we go all the way back to the beginning of this policy, the reasoning for the policy to begin with was so that we had success in the first year. And so if you're telling me that what I call your fourth year is tight and you can't wiggle around there, if there's commitments that you can make in their first year of teaching where you could provide some more structure, it sounds like it's things that you're already doing. I think my biggest concern is making sure that all students know that help is available. It's one thing for people to have a lot of agency and pick up the phone and call you because they have a relationship. It's another thing to make a commitment to someone and someone know that if they pick up the phone to call you, you're honoring a commitment that you've already made to them. So I would just encourage some conversations around what that looks like, because we want this residency so that first year is more successful. That's what our end game was from the beginning. So if you can't move within year 4, maybe your innovation is around your post-program participation. And I would just encourage continued conversations about what is possible and how we can honor the spirit of the work that we've been trying to do for years now, and work that's based in what we've heard from our graduates and what we've heard from our schools and our districts. Like, this isn't stuff that we just made up because we like to aggravate people. This is work we're doing because we've got information about a lack of preparation. So I would just encourage conversations around how we think differently about what the program is, since we are at a place to where we need some solutions.
I also you said you hadn't seen the numbers. I just want to stress that we have a 99% retention rate from first-year teachers.
Well,
And we provided the 5 years.
Can I address?
Yeah.
The data here comes from the records of students that we keep. So we know, we keep records of where every graduate teaches, and we do that for an indefinite amount of time. So we do that because we report that data to UTeach, the UTeach Institute. So we know that a fellow named, well, I can't share his name, but but we know that one of these 108 people stopped teaching, and we know when he did. And for each of these others, we know the years that they were teaching and where they were teaching. So I almost brought the big sheet of data with me, but that's actual records of the actual people, and we could provide you with the names of every single one of them. So that's accurate data, and that shows that if you raise 95 to the power 4, you get something over a little bit over 85%. So the 5-year retention rate is over 85%, which I think is pretty good.
Thank you. We have another question from board member.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to follow up, I actually agree with everything you've just said. One thing you said, though, that I just need more understanding on is when you said results are irrefutable, what are you referring to?
I'm talking about the retention rates, the model, the testimonies from the different districts that's actually employing these students. And I mean, I'm sure we could dig deeper too. That could be another potential project to really see what the results of those students in math and science courses, how they're actually moving academically as well. I'm sure that could be another point of proof. We see Ascension as one of the highest performing districts in Louisiana, right? And the majority of these teachers are going into that field. So we can do another hypothesis, right? We're all scientists and engineers. A hypothesis, right, that the content-rich educators that's in those classrooms are contributing to growing and giving the students the depth of content that we know they need to be successful.
Yeah.
So that could be another research project that we can do, maybe another hypothesis we can kind of use around that as a point of proof.
Thank you.
That's making a difference.
Yeah, so less so irrefutable, more so promising.
Promising, yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure I'm
Wrong word.
tracking.
Wrong word.
Dr. Jones.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies. Thanks.
You're the linguist. I'm an engineer.
I am really struggling. Dr. Frank, I'm sorry, I missed your last name?
Beeson. Oh, Dr.
Yeah, Dr. Frank.
New brand.
Okay. I'm going to go with Dr. Frank. I was I've been struggling with this one all along, but Superintendent White's comments a while ago made me wonder if we approve the motion before us there, what are we actually doing? Because I interpreted your remarks to say it's hard and fast, that there's not going to be any possibility of a change. So what would we gain by continuing the discussion to December, for example? Is there some, do you envision some way between now and December that your position is going to change, or that the department's position is going to change, John?
Well, I'm not saying that at the level of staff that there hasn't been review of all the facts. I do think, though, that this is extremely intricate work. And I think that within Dr. Neubrander's comments, there are some assumptions that I'm sure, I know he probably accepts that. There are assumptions about when you say something can't be done, there are assumptions about what's underlying that. One of the assumptions that I was testing in my comments to Dr. Madden was, are we confident that no methods coursework or other coursework within the College of Education that is not related to the major but is strictly pedagogy can be effectively converted into more time in the classroom in the applied setting? I don't know the answer to that. I recognize our staff has been through that with LSU, and I think there is some disagreement. But I think if there were further time for conversation, there may be that opportunity. The other thing that we could do is bring in a third party to this and have someone review this for the board and determine is what Dr. Newbrander is saying, and I respect his opinion greatly, true, that there is simply no movement possible on this issue. But I consider it a serious thing that the flagship university in the state is effectively saying we cannot get to a point where a teacher is provided any more than 1 day a week of experience to replicate the first semester of the first year of teaching. I think that's a serious thing, and it's something that merits further discussion.
Well, it merits further discussion if there is a willingness to discuss. If there's no willingness to discuss, if positions are hard and fast, then what do we gain by delaying the decision? So I guess I'll have to throw it back towards the LSU side there. Is there a willingness to discuss, or is it a hard and fast position?
Is this on? I've really gotten a lot of positive things out of our discussions. It's been a difficult experience. It's cost me a lot of sleep, but it's one that I'm very grateful for, and that I would be willing to continue if that's what we need to do.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that answers a whole lot. Yes, sir.
I'm less diplomatic here.
I am too, so that's no problem.
Certainly, the superintendent is correct. There is never an absolute. When I say it's not possible here, life is different. Things are possible. Yes, I can see that it's possible that a student at LSU can take 2 4,000 level math courses in a 3-day period every week. That 2 days a week they go to schools, 3 days a week they work on abstract algebra and advanced calculus. Would I advise my average students to do this? Absolutely not. It would be a terrible thing for me to advise an undergraduate to go this path. Do we have a student once in a while who can do this? Yes. Maybe 1 out of 10, maybe 2 out of 10, I can advise this. The average undergrad at LSU cannot handle a heavy load of the 4,000 level classes, the final classes in their senior year, plus a 2-day-a-week student teaching experience. It would be irresponsible for me to go this way and advise a student to do this. Now, what does this mean? It certainly would mean that, yes, we can run a program with substantially reduced enrollment. People like Sean, in my information, he's only 1 out of 4 physics teachers produced in the state of Louisiana in the last 8 years. I'm not sure if he would sit here doing this, if these are the restrictions.
But why is the only course that we're talking about the courses for the major?
Because mathematics is in physics and biology and chemistry, these are vertically aligned subjects. You must take the highest level, the most difficult courses in your last semester.
Understood. However,
and there are 2 of them.
Understood. Understood. However, we have not heard a discussion about any courses that do not contribute to the major in today's dialogue, which, as I understand it, for an undergraduate at any one of our institutions, comprises a significant portion of that undergraduate's experience. Is that accurate?
Those particular courses for us, the reason we haven't stressed it today is because we have made those courses offered after school. We're incorporating the methods courses and things that are involved with what they're doing in the school's experiences. So we are going over those items then. Their content courses are the ones that we can't have control over as much because they have to take those
Understood.
when they take them.
And
but we definitely have tried to meet the need, and like Jim was saying, we're planning to increase the number of hours they're in schools than what they are now, and we're trying to work with it by making sure that every single pedagogy course is offered at 3:30 or after.
I guess, Dr. Jones, my answer to your question, which I know you didn't ask me, is I am willing, for the reasons that Dr. Newbrander outlined, to completely accept the notion that developmentally and intellectually there is a sequence to courses that necessitates that a serious portion of the final year as an undergraduate be taken up with courses for the major. What we have not examined in as great depth, and I appreciate very much the comments, but I think it deserves similar scrutiny, is whether or not it is possible that, as is done in other institutions, the applied experience in the classroom replaces some greater portion of, or allows for rearrangement of those courses that do not contribute to the major, but contribute to the overall degree. I think that is worthy of further discussion.
All right, well, let me ask you then. Is it worthy of further discussion for you? Because I'll be honest with you. If this thing is hard and fast, then we need to vote today and be done with it. But if it will benefit you to take the time between now and December to see if there is some compromise that can be reached that will effectively accomplish at least some of what we're trying to do without sacrificing the sanctity of your program, then I'm certainly willing to support the motion that's on the table. If not, if this is a hard and fast decision, then I just soon resolve it today.
I don't know if my microphone is on. I'll make one comment here.
Is the light on?
Right. First of all, one thing that I want to make perfectly clear is that the College of Science is fundamentally dedicated to having a role in providing the state with the STEM teachers that it needs. And we're trying to figure out the best way to do that. Our strategies include Go Teach, but there are other strategies that are available to us. Now, I'm going to repeat our chief concern is that we feel that, I should give you some history. I mean, the enrollments in Go Teach have been declining. They've been paralleling the declines in enrollments in teacher production in STEM fields in the state and in the nation. For the past, Title II data show that over the last, during the 5 years between 2011 and 2016, STEM teacher production in the United States declined by, depending on subject, somewhere around 30%. And in Louisiana, all right, in 2011, 2012, Louisiana was producing more math teachers per capita than the nation, but Louisiana was subject to a 40% decline in production of math teachers, and now we're producing substantially fewer math teachers per capita than the nation. This is serious. We have been grappling with and really struggling with how we can increase enrollments in Go Teach. That's what we want to do. We fear that if we have to increase the burden on the undergraduates, or we fear that if we have to modify the program in ways that we can't predict, the exact outcomes, and we don't know the exact payoffs. But I think that we are throwing a wrench into the mechanism. It's going to slow it down further. We don't want to do that. Now, all right, I myself, I'm happy to continue the discussion until we reach an understanding, and until we smile and shake one another's hands and say, this is the best thing that we could possibly have done. It was tough, but we did it.
Thank you, Dr. Madden. Ms. Voce?
Okay, I think we're talking about math, biology, physics, and chemistry.
Right.
My assumption is all other programs at LSU are meeting whatever requirements we lay down with residency issues. So we're looking at which are probably the greatest shortages of teachers we have in the state of Louisiana. We've got an innovative program here that tries to produce an effective teacher with tremendous content knowledge. These candidates are coming out with degrees in physics, in biology, in chemistry, in mathematics, and are choosing to teach, which is what we're trying to do statewide, is to get more people who are qualified into the teaching profession. When we approved this program 2 years ago, we looked at, and we did it, as Dr. Bofi was saying, in response to a lot of teachers not feeling prepared to go into the classroom. Maybe some teacher prep programs not preparing effectively, whoever they were. But this wasn't one of them. The school districts where these teachers are going love them, want more of them because of that dual preparation, because of the content knowledge, and because of that teacher preparation. When I look at the other program that we approved, which was the 40%, 60%, and and I'm a math person, not as probably well qualified as these two sitting behind you. I did it in the darker ages. Probably organic chemistry and differential calculus were some of the more difficult challenges in my life. However, looking at crunching these numbers that says, well, this many days here and this many days here, and if we want to crunch numbers a different way, they're proposing the same number of days the senior year as the other program we approved, just in a little different configuration. If we take Dr. Madden at his word to say those experiences, the quality experiences, and I know Dr. Bofi alluded to those as well, the quality experiences are going to be there that first semester. We're going to have the students open the year with the school system. We're going to have them there for vital parts of the year. If we can have them for the closing of the semester, if we can do those kinds of things, they're offering a rich and robust experience for these candidates who are probably some of the best prepared candidates that we're going to have in the state of Louisiana when we look at the dual content and teacher preparation. Now, we can split hairs and say, well, instead of 1 day, we want 2 days here. So in your second semester, instead of 4 or 5, you can cut it down to 3, like the other one. I just, to me, we're just playing with days and where we're putting them instead of looking at the experiences and the preparation and how pleased districts are to get these people. So the whole purpose of what we were trying to do initially 2 years ago was to say we need better prepared people in the classrooms. We need people that have experienced that year and feel confident that they can walk into the first day prepared. Well, maybe these people feel they can do that with the experiences that are being offered through the Go Teach program. And if there is, it was one of those innovative models we talked about in the very beginning of this that would probably fit under the criteria that we put in, because it was a very long discussion on that, if we all remember, at the very beginning. So I don't know whether I'm in the minority or the majority here. I feel that this program is effective. The districts want these candidates. They're well-grounded in their content areas, and they are an asset to the faculty that they sit with every day and help from a content area. They're coming in, as new teachers are, in need of experience and such, but their preparation has been effective after talking with superintendents and school districts where these candidates are being placed. So this is, to me, falls under the innovative model concept. We can sit there and count, is it 18 days the first semester and 72 days the second semester? Oh, no to that, but it's yes to 36 days the first semester and 54 the second semester that we approved for someone else. It just falls in a different pattern. So if we want to make sure that these people are getting the quality experiences, and I would say, as Dr. Madden has promised, let's make sure that they are effective experiences that first semester that will span the entire semester. So, again, I just say I'm strongly in favor of this proposal because the outcomes are what we're looking for. And their teachers are coming in, their candidates are coming in prepared. And I thought that's what we were trying to do, and not worry about how many days here and here.
Dr. Jones, thank you, Ms.
I just have a
Coach.
point of order or a question of order, I guess. So the proposal that we still have to vote on the table is to, we've already basically approved the ones with the asterisk by them, as I understand it. The proposal that's left on the table is to do what?
To receive the report.
Okay, to just receive the report. Okay. So in other words, that just continues the discussion, but they have the same problem that ULL and everyone else has about trying to get a catalog or so forth through. So, and I'm not speaking for you, Ms. Boucher, or suggesting this is what you want, but in effect, I think if I understood what you just would propose, you would say to approve these. So that would require either a substitute motion or a defeat of this first motion and then a subsequent motion. Is that an accurate assessment?
You have a question.
I don't have a question. I think that, well, I don't want to propose something spontaneously, but let me just say that we could hire an external evaluator to look at the proposal. And the problem that, a problem that would arise is that I can't research my own program. And even, if I report on my own program and I report that my program is doing well, it's not objective. But we have access to external, objective, high reputation external evaluator that can look at this proposal and that can report rigorously on what's actually happening. So my proposal, a suggestion would be is, all right, the department doesn't want to set a precedent that something like this can actually, can be approved, because then other people will come and ask for it. But on the other hand, if when people propose something that was really at an extreme position, if they came together with a specific proposal for a high-quality research study coupled with it, that might make a difference. And then the ultimate decision would be made after the research was completed. And the research might dictate that we do something different than what we had imagined.
Are you suggesting a temporary approval then? Because the only way you're going to find out is
I said that I would say something I prefaced this by saying that this was a spontaneous thought. I have gotten in a lot of trouble in the past for sharing spontaneous thoughts.
Don't we all?
I don't want to be. I don't want to be.
I got married the first time.
All right. Yep. Gotten hit. Gotten bottles thrown at me for that.
May I?
But the idea is basically that we go with the proposal, but we add to it a provision that involves a high quality, objective examination of what's going on.
You okay with that, John?
Thank you, Dr. Madden. But Superintendent White?
I am okay with it, but let me add a wrinkle. First, whatever substitute motion moves ahead, it needs to include a full approval of the ag program, which is not included in the original motion. So that I think we all agree on that.
So I would like to move exactly that we go ahead with the approval, including the ag proposal, and we can and that we would research and make sure that that is having the positive outcomes that we're looking for.
Well, I think the research piece probably needs to be more specific than just saying we will research it. I have a suggestion. I think we've reached a point of complexity. Then we can go ahead and approve the ag program. I'd be comfortable going ahead and approving this program as well with the research stipulation. However, what I would ask is that you provide my team and I a chance during lunch to meet with leadership at LSU so that I can ask a couple of key questions, and that if I uncover something that I feel is of incredible importance, you will then agree to at least hear me out at tomorrow's meeting when this item comes up.
You making that motion, Doris?
Yes, I make the motion.
I second it.
Approve. Okay.
So what that would necessitate is that the folks from LSU be willing to stick around and hang out with me at lunch. All right, fair enough.
Okay, one moment. Let's repeat the motion. Doris.
What's the motion, Doris?
Ms. Voce and Edmiston.
That we approve the programs, including the ag program, that are presented.
Substitute motion to approve rather than receive.
Correct.
Those
All of those programs.
biology,
Right.
chemistry,
And they-
math, application. So the substitute motion by Ms. Voce, seconded by Ms. Edmiston, is to approve the programs for biology 612, chemistry 612, math 612, physics 612, vocational agriculture 612 for the undergraduate pathway for LSU.
With, as I understand it, an agreement that there will be a plan in place to research the effectiveness of the STEM, of the respective STEM pathways, correct?
The issue you brought up a minute ago, John, we always have the ability to do that at the meeting tomorrow. So that's not a problem. If you want to bring that up tomorrow during the thing, we have the ability to consider it at the meeting tomorrow.
Thank you.
So just as said.
No, I will raise. We'll talk about it, and I'll raise it tomorrow. That's fine.
Just a point of clarification. I brought this up in the previous item with UL. Can we just direct maybe that be a potential project of this research consortium? Since I did bring that up in the previous items, they're both innovative models, just so we can kind of keep things in one area and not cloud the motion, right? So I think it's an appropriate place to put it under that research consortium instead of tagging it to this approval of
Are you
these
bringing this up
programs.
as a motion, Ms. Lewis?
I'm just a point of clarification to not include the research
Could I just
as part of
respond to
this
that, too?
motion.
I think Ms. Lewis is absolutely right. In my opinion, any innovative model that we would approve, it should be implied that the data is kept to see how effective it is, because it does differ in some regard to what the established guidelines are. So whether it be the LSU model, the ULL model, or any innovative model that we would approve, I would assume that the department would look at the data in terms of effectiveness of the teachers, the retention of the teachers, or what those particular criteria to see if it's working. So I would not necessarily say it's just specific to this particular program. It should be any innovative model that we would approve that deviates from the established guidelines. Because really, if an innovative model works and is more effective than what we have, then that should be an indication that you would like to replicate.
Any opposition?
No.
Yes, Dr. Jones?
I'd just like to point out that with all the pleasure that Ed Ogeron and those Tigers brought me last Saturday, there's no way I could ever vote against anything for LSU here today.
I believe you just gave away your leverage, Dr. Jones.
We'll break for lunch. Oh, motion passes, sorry.
No,
We have to go back and part. I'd like to do that. We've got two other items to get to. Can we move those up?
I'm sorry.
Can we move them up?
Out of order? Motion to take out of order, Ms. Voce?
Yeah. Sure.
Dr. Jones? Yes. And we go.
Your next item is on page 166, item 7.1, consideration of executive session regarding discussion of the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of a person in accordance with Louisiana Revised Statute 4216 regarding a records review for the following persons: Ms. Michelle Guidry, Mr. Roy Sirach, Ms. Christine Vaughns, Ms. Deborah Taylor, Ms. Janelle Jones.
Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
So move.
Dr. Thompson, first. Second, Ms. Kira Orange-Jones. Is there any public comment or board discussion on this matter before we take a roll call? No comments? Roll call? In order for this motion to pass, 2/3 Affirmative vote of members present is required. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Dr. Bofi? Yes. Dr. Bofi votes yes. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Davis votes yes. Ms. Edmonston?
Yes.
Ms. Edmonston votes yes. Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey votes yes. Dr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Jones votes yes. Ms. Lewis? Is not present. Ms. Orange-Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Orange-Jones votes yes. Mr. Rock?
Yes.
Mr. Rock votes yes. Dr. Thomason?
Yes.
Dr. Thomason votes yes. Ms. Voce?
Yes.
Ms. Voce votes yes. And Ms. Holloway?
Yes.
All right. By a vote of 11 yeas and 12 nays, the motion passes.
Okay.
And no nays, I'm sorry.
Visitors, I will advise the audience that we will be in executive session for the length of time necessary for the discussion. No votes will be taken while the board is in executive session. All votes will be made public. Additionally, public disclosure is not required of matters discussed in properly held executive session. At this time, the Educator Effectiveness Committee stands in recess to go into executive session. Thank you. Good afternoon. Can I get a motion to reconvene the Educator Effectiveness Committee and continue with the regular order of the agenda to vote?
So moved.
So moved.
On the items discussed in executive session. Thank you. Ms. Voce first, Mr. Davis second. Next item, please.
Your next item is on page 167, item 7.2, consideration of a records review regarding the issuance of a Louisiana ancillary certificate appropriate to the credentials of Ms. Michelle M. Guidry. The recommendation is to grant, deny, or defer.
I'll make a motion to deny.
Motion to deny, second?
Second.
Dr. Jones, second. Mr. Davis, the first, and Dr. Jones, second. Any opposed? Any objection? Motion carries. Next item.
Your next item is on page 213, item 7.3, consideration of a records review regarding reinstatement of a Louisiana teaching certificate appropriate to the credentials of Mr. Roy J. Sarah. The recommendation is to grant, deny, or defer.
Motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Grant. Ms. Kira Orange-Jones to grant. Mr. Davis. I'm sorry, Ms. Lewis, second. Any objection? Motion carried. Next item, please.
Your next item is on page 237, item 7.4, consideration of a records review regarding a determination of eligibility for child care purposes is number one. Number two is the reinstatement of a Louisiana early childhood ancillary certificate appropriate to the credentials of Ms. Christine M. Vaughns.
Motion, please.
So moved.
Dr. Jones.
For both or
For both, or for
To
one or
grant,
two?
deny, or defer, and on one or both.
My motion is to grant.
Grant on
both.
On both. Grant on both. Mr.
I'll
Rock? Second. Any objection? Motion carried. Next item, please.
Your next item is on page 259, item 7.5, consideration of a records review regarding the issuance of a Louisiana Career and Technical Trade and Industrial Education Certificate appropriate to the credentials of Ms. Deborah Lynn Westbrook Taylor. The recommendation is to grant, deny, or defer.
Move to grant.
Motion. Ms. Voce first, and Mr. Rock second. Any objection? Motion carried. Next item, please.
Your next item is on page 285, item 7.6, consideration of a records review regarding issuance of a Louisiana Ancillary Early Childhood Certificate appropriate to the credentials of Ms. Janelle Rochelle Jones. The recommendation is to grant, deny, or defer.
Motion to grant.
Motion to grant, Ms. Kira Orange-Jones, and second, Mr. Davis. Any objection? Motion carried. Recess?
This concludes our agenda. No, I'm sorry, it does not conclude our agenda. We will recess for lunch until 2:30, at which time we will return to this committee to take up the last two items.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Dr. Bofi. Mr. Davis. Miss Edmonston. Mr. Garvey. Dr. Jones.
Here.
Miss Lewis.
I'm here.
Miss Orange Jones.
Here.
Mr. Rock.
Here.
Miss Boche.
Here.
Dr. Thomason.
Here.
Miss Holloway.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Next item, please.
We will return to the items that were skipped and taken out of order. Your next item is on page 123. Item 3.1, consideration of an update report regarding the program requirements of Bulletin 996, standards for approval of teacher and/or educational leader preparation programs. Section 737, certification only program, alternate path to certification. The department recommendation is to receive the report, noting that a final report regarding the pilot grant program will be provided in January 2019 and will include a proposal regarding program requirements.
Motion to receive, please.
So moved.
Ms. Kira Orange Jones first and Dr. Bofi second. Superintendent White.
Thank you. Members, I can provide an update that's germane to this on Assistant Superintendent Deitch's and my discussions with LSU. It's germane to this because they have an innovative pilot which could inform the future of certification programs. We met prior to lunch and had an excellent discussion with the leadership at LSU. We agreed that we're going to commission a qualitative study of their model, and we're going to study it over a 5-year period from the freshman year all the way through the postgraduate experience for a reporting back to you as to how the actual experience plays out and what its implications are for future model development, including post-baccalaureate models. So I thank the leadership at LSU. I think that's a good step, and I look forward to identifying the research partner for that study. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yes, discussion. Ms. Edmondson.
Just in the meantime, we've approved and we're going forward.
Correct. And I recommend no changes. No changes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Question? We do have a public comment card. Ms. Octavia Peak, please come forward. Ms. Octavia Peak. Okay, maybe unless she's out. Okay, we'll move forward. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item, please.
Your next item is on page 135, item 5.1, consideration of revisions to bulletins regarding the creation and expansion of teacher leader roles. The department recommendation is to approve as notices of intent revisions to bulletins 125, 130, 746, and 996.
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Bofi first, second, Mr. Davis. Any objections, or you have a report?
No.
No, be good. Motion, we have public comments. Ms. Deborah Moe, Ms. Sean Diamond, Mandy Baldwin, and Eva Kemp does not wish to speak, but supports the recommendation. Ms. Deborah, we have Mandy and Sean done.
Is submitting written public comments. And the board members have it.
All right, thank you. Ms. Deborah? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Debbie Moe. I'm representing the Louisiana Association of Educators. I do support these programs, but I do have problems with one piece. If you look at Bulletin 130, mentor teacher is described as a teacher who supports aspiring teachers participating in undergraduate and post-baccalaureate residencies or experienced teachers. Mentor teachers use a cycle of coaching focused on instructional decisions that meet the needs of all students. Mentors may co-teach with year-long residents or may support teachers without co-teaching. Mentors may also support new teachers or developing teachers in need of coaching, including teachers with an intensive assistance plan, and it goes on to in accordance with the different parts of the law. In Bulletin 130, it does say, under evaluators, B1, other designees such as instructional coaches, content leaders, master teachers, and mentor teachers may conduct observations to help inform the evaluator's assessment of teacher performance. These designees shall be recorded as additional observers within the accountability relationships register. I am unsure as to whether or not this means that the mentor teacher will serve as the evaluator or just simply as was in the LATAP model when mentor teachers actually did do evaluations as mock evaluations and then conferenced with the evaluator to just discuss the teacher's performance and progress. If that is the case, I support that model. But if mentor teachers will be used by administrators as additional evaluators, I think that really does defeat the purpose of a mentor teacher. The mentor teacher needs to develop very strong relationships with the mentee so that they trust one another. And if the mentor teacher is then going to turn around and become an evaluator of the mentee, I think that puts a wedge between the two in that relationship. So I'm unsure exactly what this means. Again, if it means that the mentor does evaluations as an informative way of helping the mentee to pass the formal evaluation, I have no problems with it. However, if administrators are going to use mentors as a way of filling their need to have additional evaluators, then I would have issue with that model. Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Garvey.
Could we get a comment from the department on that?
Sure.
Because that is an excellent point. If you're trying to develop a camaraderie, collaborative type relationship, then you might could ruin that with.
It's a little bit of, it's kind of in the middle, actually. The answer is that they cannot, they don't implement the final rating. In other words, they don't develop the rating. However, they can observe the teacher in a manner that contributes evidence toward the rating, which would be developed by another administrator.
And you say can, does that mean that it would be up to the principal of the school or
Yes.
the superintendent of the district?
Yes.
So it could go either way.
No, in that
They could take
it is not the role of the mentor to determine the final rating. The mentor is not the evaluator. However, if the principal chooses or the superintendent chooses, they may use observations that are conducted by the mentor as part of the ultimate evaluation.
So in the opposite point of view, the principal could also choose to take the evaluator, the mentor teacher completely out of the evaluation
Correct.
process.
Yes, sir. Yes.
It would be up to the principal or the superintendent.
That's correct.
If I may, I would suggest that the mentor teacher also have a say in that role. If a mentor teacher is not comfortable serving in that role, I don't think that mentor teacher should be forced into that role.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mandy?
Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, Dr. Jones.
I think it's careful to delineate or denote the difference between observations and evaluations. What's mentioned here is those people have the ability to contribute evidence towards the evaluation, and it's in the form of an observation. And that could be formal, it could be informal, it virtually just basically is saying that those people can help provide evidence to the evaluator, but the evaluator is who makes the evaluation, not people who provide anecdotal or even checklists or whatever other thing there. And the key word in there is may. It's not required that those people In other words, these people are not suddenly becoming supervisory personnel in the formal evaluation process.
Again, if I may, I just would like to see that this become an option that includes the mentor in the decision.
I think it does say mentor in the, it says other designees such as instructional coaches, content leaders, master teachers, and mentor teachers may. So I think it's in this wording.
Thank you. Yes.
Good afternoon.
Mr.
As it states right now, is the language clear in the mentor teacher training program about the role and responsibility of the mentor teacher in regard to observations?
Good question. Meaning when they're trained, are they clear as to those, where they fit in those responsibilities? I don't know how explicit the training is, but Assistant Superintendent, I might ask your.
So the mentor training prepares mentors to use a cycle of coaching with their mentees that starts with setting goals, reviewing progress against goals based on observations or practice and review of student data, and then revising goals. So that's what mentors are taught to do. They're also taught to use tools that help a mentor-mentee understand the extent to which the curriculum is being implemented effectively. I would also add that the ability for a principal to designate a mentor or master teacher as a contributor to the evaluation is not new. That was always in policy. We've only added the content leader role to that list of roles, but always the board has given the principal the ability to include observations from other staff that are named in the bulletin on a May basis.
Thank you.
And may I ask a follow-up,
Sure.
Madam Chair? And you, from your view, do you see it as a compromising role for a mentor to be able to play, to know they may play a role in the evaluative process?
I think that the mentor role will look a little bit different from school to school and district to district. And it may be that in some schools, the mentor is playing a role where it would be appropriate for that individual to contribute to an evaluation rating, although, as Dr. Jones states, not the final evaluator. In other circumstances, it may not be appropriate. I think the language that the principal may designate creates that possibility.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, just let me add this. I did serve as a mentor under the LATAP program. And under the LATAP program, the mentor was strictly divided away from any formal observation or evaluation. We did mocks to help our mentees. And when I did those mock evaluations and then had the post-observation conference with the mentee, when I did give constructive criticism, is what I called it, sometimes they viewed it as criticism. And you could see the wind just deflate out of their sails. So I would just be cautionary that this not be a mandatory piece for mentors and that they be part of the decision. They know their mentees. Thank you.
Thank you. Mandy. Thank you, Hannah.
Good afternoon, BESE members, Superintendent White, and other visitors. My name is Mandy Bodway, and I am a 20-year educator, having spent 15 years in the classroom as a secondary math teacher at Lutcher High School in St. James Parish, 2 years as a district curriculum facilitator in St. James Parish, 3 years here at the Department of Education as the math program coordinator, and currently I am the assistant principal of the Science and Math Academy program in St. James Parish. During the 2017-18 school year, I was nominated and chosen to participate in the mentor teacher program and receive those 9 days of training last year for secondary mathematics. It is one of the best professional development opportunities I have been a part of from the department in my 20 years of education. The greatest impact the mentor teacher training has had on my work is providing me with ways to focus my efforts to better help teachers improve instruction in their classrooms. Oftentimes when teachers are observed, there are many areas they attempt to adjust and make corrections to or make better, which can lead to very few areas truly improving. The mentor teacher training provided skills to identify the greatest needs of teachers and then develop action plans to improve those areas of need. Last year, I was paired with a novice teacher, a first-year teacher who taught biology, an area for which I am certified but have never taught. The mentor teacher training provided me a way to mentor that teacher, even though I have very little knowledge of that background. The most valuable information I obtained from the mentor teacher training is developing the skill of listening. Listening for a purpose, listening to understand rather than to respond, and practicing the power of a pause. It is vitally important as a mentor teacher to listen to all that novice or resident teachers have to say and to frame their comments in a way that better allows me to help them. I also apply these listening skills to students in my classroom by paraphrasing their questions to help them know that I have heard them, and then developing my own questions to deepen their understanding or my understanding of their concerns. I have also used these listening skills in my new position as an assistant principal, as I have listened to parent concerns, student concerns, and as I have been helping teachers to understand the curriculum. Throughout the mentor teacher training, we discussed Tier 1 curriculum materials and learned how to analyze those materials to meet the shifts required by our new standards. I will say that in light of the discussion that has already happened, one of the things that we did talk about as a mentor teacher, and one of the things that I valued, was the idea of creating a contract, and contract is too strong a word, but creating an agreement between myself, the teacher that I was mentoring, and the principal, that the discussions that I had with my mentee, with the teacher that I was mentoring, were confidential and would only be shared in cases where I believed it absolutely necessary because there was harm being done. But that when observations were had, those things were kept between myself and the mentee. And the principal I was under at the time never did ask me to reveal any of that information. So I believe in our training, and I know my time is up and I apologize, but I believe in our training through the mentor process, the 9 days that we attended, it is made clear that we are asked to not take an evaluative role, but to take a supportive role for those teachers.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I have a question.
Yes, one moment. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't know really who this is a question best to direct it to, but when a teacher becomes a mentor teacher, is there a raise or extra pay involved in that? Or is it optional depending on the policy of the district? I would like to assume that there's some extra money for these teachers that are stepping up to do this kind of leadership.
There is over the course of the transition. So the state is working with school systems on subsidizing that role. Whether that exists in perpetuity beyond the transition to the new system, I think will ultimately be a local question, and hopefully this year we'll start to see some more revenue so that school systems can do some of those things.
Okay.
Ms. Lewis.
So my comment is kind of germane. It's germane definitely to, I guess, renewing teacher and ag leader certifications. I know item 4.1 was a consent agenda, but you know, I've had several people call me about this loophole in Bulletin 746. We just had the Teacher Certification Appeals Council approve 21 appeals. And I know that they did bring this up in the SAC committee, and I know, John, you're supposed to be convening a group around these certificates being renewed, because we have leaders in administrative positions that can't renew their certifications because they're not compass evaluated. And so I don't know if this is to amend the motion that we have on the floor, but I would just like to make sure that we include policy revisions in 746, just to kind of adjust the policy to resolve these folks with these certificates expiring and not being able to renew it because they don't have compass evaluations. I know we've had conversations about that, but if we can tag those policy revisions on to this as well, because I just think this is going to be a continuing problem for the appeals council, and if we can just modify the policy to include the experience, for these professionals, I think that would be very helpful.
Yes, so we're convening a meeting of the regional superintendents leaders on November 15. This will be on the agenda. We're working with the personnel directors. I think the one issue the board should be aware of is that the issue that Ms. Lewis mentions may necessitate legislative change. I say may necessitate legislative change rather than bulletin change, and that's the only caveat I would put forward.
I'd like to ask something pertinent to that particular issue. On page 144 at the bottom and then the top of 145, where it says, I'm assuming, Ms. Lewis, you're talking about the Ed Leader 1 going to Ed Leader 2?
Yeah,
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, we have Ed Leader Level 2, an individual qualifies to upgrade from Ed Leader Level 1 to an Ed Leader Level 2 by A, successfully meeting standards of effectiveness for 3 years in accordance with, and I'm assuming that's the Compass.
Yes.
The Compass system. I had a discussion in the ladies' room before the meeting this morning, because with Hannah, but it was my understanding, that the rubric in the Compass system does not necessarily apply to, say, a coordinator in your central office or someone that is not school-based in order to get this Ed leadership bump. It's my understanding, the legislation, from my discussion, that the legislation mandates a 50-50 split with observation and something with student learning targets. So my question is, or was, to Hannah, if we evaluate our own candidates in Ed Leader 1 and give them those targets and use our own local rubric that is a 50-50 with the targets, could we then apply for that upgrade? And she's shaking her yes, we could, which to me is a short-term solution. I'd rather see a rubric that we can do this with. Yeah, I know Superintendent about legislative change, and if that's geared to that 50% with the SLTs, but if there is a workaround until that happens, because I have people that are sitting there like that too, then I would suggest we use the workaround until that happens. Does this policy that we would be approving today, because it's underscored, would that change anything? In other words, could we still do what I'm proposing? And Hannah shaking her said yes, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see why not, because the state can produce the rubrics.
So I can use my own at that point then?
If the state just says you can, yeah.
So I can, it would be an individual SLTs with each one of them, depending upon the areas of, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I have another question when y'all finish this point, so I don't know if it's ready to ask until this point is finished.
Good.
Okay.
Go ahead and ask.
All right.
You're good.
One thing I wanted to ask about, and I think it's on 146, when we're talking about Ed Leadership Certification Implementation Timeline. And I know that we have a university pathway to an Ed Leader certification, and then we have the alternate pathways that deal with number of, if you have a master's degree and then a certain number of hours. And I see in the bulletin, we're talking about if you take one of the alternate pathways, then you would have to use for 100 of those 250 hours mentor and or content leader, whatever. Okay, I can go with that. What I'm asking, I guess, looking at the top of 146, if we have a person, for example, goes to the university and gets the master's degree in Ed Leadership, right now, in order to get a provisional certification or a certificate that says you can activate it upon, the attainment of that position, they have to take the praxis test for licensure. Under number 2 on page 146 at the top, A2, where it says pilot and study LLAS in the winter of 2019 to ensure suitability for its use as a required assessment to the Ed Leader Level 1 certification. I guess my problem is, or my question is, if I'm going to LSU, UNO, Lafayette, or wherever, and I get my master's degree, I've got to go take the praxis. If we're looking at substituting, and maybe I'm reading this incorrectly, substituting this test for the praxis, which has information on it with mentor and content leader and such, and suppose my university pathway did not prepare me for that licensure test, I'm prepared for the praxis. Are we talking about making those people take this new licensure test, or are we talking about telling the universities in the graduate level pathway they must include these concepts in their coursework? What exactly are we if we pass this policy today and tomorrow, what are we really requiring? And it says we're looking at it for suitability, I understand. But if we implement that as a requirement, would we do it prior to any agreement with the universities that it be part of the actual program when they attain their master's degree?
No, and that's why we're just piloting it. And the language could be changed to mean the same thing and probably could be a little less definitive, but it basically says pilot and study to ensure suitability, which basically means we're open to it not being suitable. Okay. We would have to come back to the board to require anything. The one thing that we are trying to say is that if you do go through the mentor path, we want there to be a series of assessments for you that are appropriate to that path. Whether it would be appropriate for everybody pursuing an Ed Leader license, number one, that's something we would need to pilot, and the board in years hence would have to consider whether or not that's feasible and suitable.
I just want to make sure that if we're going to change any of that to incorporate it, and look, the mentorship training is wonderful. I don't have any problem with what we're doing and what the content is. My only problem is before we do one, I want to make sure we do everything in tandem, so that if we're going to require a change from the praxis for licensure to these, that persons who pursue it through a university are not going to have to sit there then and try to study something additionally that they will not have had access to.
And until it ever, the board would have to act to ever require it or remove something else.
All right.
Any other discussion? Any objections? No? Motion carries. And
that concludes our agenda.